Hey guys, tonight we are saddling up with the caravan, slow, careful, and cozy, learning the unglamorous routines that keep people, animals, and goods alive between oases. We'll drift mile by mile, dawn muster, water math, road etiquette, storm drills, night camps, and the quiet signals that make a long road gentle. Before sunrise, the camp is a dim necklace of embers and sleeping breaths. A bell tests its throat once, clear, not loud, and the quiet wakes like cloth being folded. The rule is first light, not noise. Water boils in 2 kettles, one for tea that persuades everyone to be human, one for a thin date broth that convinces joints to forgive yesterday. Children learn to sit facing east while they drink. Even the small body knows where the day is coming from. Packing begins where sleep ends. Each person rolls their blanket so the clean edge faces out. Grit is pressed toward the middle where it can't rub skin later. The sleeping roll goes into the same pouch every time. Pouches are geography you can trust in the dark. A house on the road is not a tent. It is a memory map wrapped in leather. Cooking kit follows. Pans nested, lid strapped, tinderbox padded to hear the flint answer. The shelter cloth is folded last so shade can be raised if the sky suddenly has opinions. Loads love symmetry. A camel will forgive a lot, but it sulks at imbalance. Panniers are matched like sentences with commas in the same place. Rope carries its own grammar. A square lash for crates, a diamond lash for round skins, a soft hitch for sacks that settle. A small red tassel on the lead ring means home weight. A blue tassel means light day after illness or a hard stretch. Before anything leaves the ground, a handler crouches at the camel's knee and listens for the breath to stead why. Loading begins only when the animal has exhaled its night. Feet are audited like ledgers. Sand is tapped out of socks and foot wraps. Cracked heels get a swipe of palm oil and ash, an old salve that keeps skin from arguing with distance. Shoelaces are not merely tightened, they are negotiated, snug over the instep, forgiving at the swelling toes. Donkeys have their hoof plates checked for grit. The farrier's rasp kisses an edge because small stones love a corner more than a flat. Goats, who believe in democracy, are counted by the child who knows all their names. The child is counted by a grandmother who knows all the children. Breakfast is portioned by an arithmetic older than appetite. Everyone receives the same shallow cup. 3 swallows stand between you and thirst that lies later. Salt is folded into bread, not sprinkled on top, because it must be a habit rather than a decoration. The broth is thin on purpose. Thick food pretends to be generous and then asks for too much water at noon. The cook keeps 1 gourd clean for mouths and 1 gourd rude for washing. The gourds never exchange jobs no matter how the road pleads. Scouts go first without being told. 2 dunes ahead is the law, far enough to read, close enough to shout with arms. They read the cat's tongue ripples for wind truth, the color of the far sand for yesterday's footnotes. If the ridges look sharp, the day will be a ladder. If they look bruised, the day will be a bowl. Their hands carry a cane and a cord, the cane to test the crust, the cord to measure the size of a lie when a valley looks nearer than it is. The main line arranges itself like a sentence, goods in the middle where the grammar is protected. Younger feet just behind the lead where the pace is honest. Elders closer to shade and jokes at the rear. The bell rides the first camel. 1 ring is a halt. 2 rings mean close ranks before the sun learns to stare. 3 rings call hands to instinct, cover faces, anchor beasts, and unroll a strip of reed shade for the cook so the kettle can think. These are not secrets. They are lullabies taught at sleeping time so the body remembers when the mind is busy with horizon. Before the line moves, there is a minute of silence. Not prayer, not drama. A practical check. Each handler touches halter, girth, rope tail. Each person pats their chest for the 4 pockets that are not for trade. Salt pouch, sewing kit, tinder, and the folded cloth that becomes a sling, a shade, a filter, or a promise. The rearguard walks through the prints left by camp and notes how soft they are. Softness tells if an animal will hate the morning or if the ground has forgiven the night's chill. Then the day is lifted. Camels fold up from their knees in a motion like a thought finishing. Loads that were confident on the ground confess their quirks once they meet gravity. One pannier slumps, a waterskin leans. The lead's palm finds each fault and sets it right without speeches. The first 100 steps are the trial. After that, the walk becomes music and a wrong note is obvious, pace is measured, never guessed. 45 minutes is not superstition. It is a distance the body will pay for without writing debt. Rest is 15, true, not stolen. In those 15, sandals are opened, not removed. Feet are aired but never offered fully to the sand. The reed screen is lowered at a polite angle so wind learns to help rather than show off. Shade is shared in slices, not in suns. One person sits. Another stands and holds a child. The child is not allowed to nap because naps belong to shade that can keep its promise longer than a quarter hour. Water is a teacher more than a drink. 3 swallows per rest put a ribbon of cool through the body often enough that thirst cannot invent bad ideas like, I will drink once and be brave. Camels look at water and then look away. Their silence is not stoic, it is arithmetic. They drink late and heavy so the road between drinks belongs to their lungs, not to their stomachs. Donkeys sip when people do. They are honest and will tell on you if your cup is stingy. The person in charge of the gourd is not the strongest or the kindest but the most boring. Boredom is fairness that has learned to walk. The last act of the muster is a story. The lead tells a short one, always the same length, about a day when the bell broke and hands had to learn the old signals with elbows and shoulders. Children repeat the part where a scarf tied high means water found, and a scarf tied low means water delayed. They laugh in the same place every morning. And in laughing they breathe deeper, and in breathing deeper they carry a little more air into the first hour. Routines hide this kind of grace everywhere. Now the sun has chosen color and there is no more time to be clever. The line leans forward, not fast, just sure, and the prints the rear guard reads begin to write themselves. The bell does not ring again for a long while. The hush inside the movement is the caravan's true engine. Hundreds of tiny decisions already made before the day could interrupt. Every strap where it belongs. Every mouth believing 3 swallows is enough for now. Every foot willing to share the hard with the soft. Every animal moving like a paragraph confident in its commas. Survival, it turns out, is made of boring heroism repeated until it becomes comfort. Pace is not speed. Pace is a contract. The lead sets it with a string around his wrist, 5 knots that count the quarter hours by touch. He does not look back to see if people are tired. He watches shadows under animals to see if the ground is arguing. On crusted flats, footprints hold crisp. The line lengthens and the minutes feel generous. In soft bowls of sand, steps shorten until the gait is half music, half caution. Ankles loosen, hips do the arithmetic, and the bell stays silent because the bell is for decisions, not for sympathy. Rest is a ceremony repeated until it stops feeling like ceremony. At the ring of a single bell, the first 3 camels kneel on their own pads. No one lets knees meet hot sand without kindness. Loads are not thrown off. They slump a courteous finger's width and are caught by strap and habit. People do not collapse into shade. They build it. 2 poles, a reed screen, 1 cord at windward taut, 1 leeward offered to the breeze like a suggestion. In that sliver of dimmer light, the kettle begins a small job and ends it. No grand boiling, just enough to turn dust into tea and tea into a better mood. The 15-minute ledger is precise. First minute, sandals opened, not removed. Grit brushed from strap edges so tomorrow's blister stays a rumour. Second minute, 3 swallows, counted with the tongue against the roof of the mouth so thirst cannot pretend. Third minute, salt, a pinch on the thumb, pressed to the palate. Without salt, water lies and legs believe it. Fourth minute, headcloth crown loosened to vent heat without insulting the sun. Fifth minute, eyes close, not for sleep but to remember a cool wall. The brain believes pictures more than weather. The remaining minutes belong to repairs so small they become invisible. A knot breathed open and tied again, a girth reset 1 hole toward mercy. A pebble evicted from a donkey shoe with a twig that has learned the way children move inside a different metronome. They walk on the shadow side of animals as if following streams, switching at each rest when sun has slid a palm across the sky. They are taught the soft lane, that tiny ribbon where footprints have already pressed a path that forgives ankles, and they are praised for finding it without looking down. Each rest, a different child is the shade tender, keeper of the reed angle. When a gust leans too hard, the tender's elbow answers, and 10 faces remember the cool that follows obedience, signals a language without argument. The bell speaks first, 1 ring for halt, 2 for tighten ranks before the desert remembers to become a mirror, 3 for danger that needs no nouns. Hands speak finer grammar. A raised fist freezes even the cockiest goat. An open palm means water ahead, and is only used when the eyes have heard it from the ground as well as the horizon. 2 fingers from eyes to ridge says, watch the line of shadow there, a place where wind has been hoarding mischief. A scarf whirled in a tight low circle means brace load. A patch of yawning sand demands even weight and even courage. Between signals there is the music of bells that do not mean things, only pace. The lead bell is deep and slow, a vowel. A donkey toward the rear wears a higher note that trembles like laughter. It keeps stragglers inside the sentence. When both bells pause together. The road has grown narrow somewhere, perhaps a cut where dunes have tried to shake hands, and everyone feels their steps learn politeness without being taught. Shade is a moving architecture. The reed screen is not hung like a wall. It is angled to be a verb. At high noon the wind forgets kindness and becomes a long sum. The screen turns it into smaller arithmetic, a series of subtraction problems that leave air calm enough to hold a story. The pot lives under the hinge of that angle where smoke walks upward, not into faces. Bread warms at the edge where heat has remembered moderation. A single green sprig, mint if a bundle has survived, wormwood if not, hangs from the windward cord. It turns hot scent into a thought that recalls rivers without promising 1. Feet survive by manners. In sand, a wise foot kisses and lifts. Slapping is for streams and anger. When crust breaks, you do not correct the ankle with force. You teach the next step to land 2 fingers to the left, where your neighbor's weight has already had a conversation with the dune. If you hear a high, thin sound from your shoe, it is the sand telling a joke at your expense. Sit, empty, smooth the insole with a palm, and thank the mockery for the warning. Blisters begin as vanity, I can wait, and become lectures that night will grade harshly. Heat learns to be managed when people stop trying to win arguments with it. Sleeves are unstuck from pride and allowed to breathe. A damp cloth inside the crown of a headcloth is replaced before it becomes merely a hat. Eyes hide behind the narrowest slit of shade because seeing less of the desert is sometimes the kindest way to love it. Children are not scolded for asking for water. They are praised for asking on the minute, not the whim, and taught to trade 1 swallow for 1 date when the body wants something to do besides fetch and carry. The rear guard reads what the lead cannot, what the caravan has written already. He watches the gait of the prince. When stride shortens by a thumb and toe digs deeper, someone in the middle has decided to pretend. He does not whistle or call. He asks the donkey with a laughing bell to drift closer, and the honest sound of company unties the knot in the proud person's jaw. If a prince shows a drag of toe that was not there before, he knows which goat is bored and invites a child to swap places for 3 minutes to give the goat new gossip. Every hour belongs partly to the animals and partly to the sky. Camels wish to kneel when they do not need to. The line gives the urge a place to live by kneeling them on pads before discomfort becomes a lesson. Donkeys who toss their heads at horseflies are loaned a smudge of ashen oil over the eyes. Insects red oils like rude letters and detour. Goats tire in strange ways, suddenly and then not at all, so the rhythm includes a brief clatter of pebbles thrown not at them but near their pride. Goats prefer not to let stones win, and in disagreeing they remember how to move. By late morning, the light grows a taste of metal at its edge and conversation fades without having offended. This is the hour when road politeness matters most. People speak in questions that can be answered with hand signs. Someone laughs at the old joke because it is a good machine for turning anger into air. The kettle reappears like an apology and is accepted. The rope across a slipping skin is reset not tighter but kinder. The line keeps its promise to itself. The afternoon will be won by restraint, and the evening will be a result of decisions made while heads were still cool. The last rest before noon has a different smell. Leather is warm, rope smells of palm and dust, and the world has narrowed to important nouns: shade, salt, swallow, strap, step. A short lesson is told to a child about how to count dunes not by number. Numbers become cruel past 5, but by flavors: tongue sand, knee sand, laugh sand, hush sand, home sand. The child pretends to understand and actually does, because bodies learn faster than minds when the teacher is noon. Then the bell speaks twice, tighten, and the line shortens its idea of itself. Shade screens are tied higher. Loads creep inward along their straps by 2 fingers. Chatter becomes a rumor. The caravan does not challenge the sun. It sidles past the worst of its attention. Pace falls a fraction, not enough to insult the schedule, enough to cheat the heat's arithmetic. The horizon seems closer, which is a lie, but a useful one. And if survival has any secret, it is that useful lies told to lungs at the right time are the truest friends a road can offer. 3 sips, 2 breaths, 1 signal. That little rhythm keeps thirst from telling lies. In a caravan, water isn't a mood. It's bookkeeping. Every measured swallow buys clearer eyes at noon and quieter legs at dusk. Drink on time, not on story. Thirst warns late and boasts early. The clock is kinder than your mouth. The daily mathaline moves on a fixed cadence: 45 minutes of walking, 15 minutes of small mercies. At each rest the ritual is exact. Sandals unlaced, grit flicked out. Shade pitched at a slant so wind becomes helper, not bully. Then the 3 sips, counted with the tongue against the palate. 1, 2, 3. Not gulps. Coins paid to the future. Children rinse once, swallow once, and press lips to the cup a 3rd time just to cool breath. Play turns discipline into habit. People carry a modest total, enough for the day, not for legend. The ledger keeper knows the load by heart. In hard heat, 1.5 to 3 liters per person across a long march, more if the air feels like a kill, less when morning wind shows mercy. The point isn't volume. It's evenness. The body spends water the way it spends muscle, steadily, then all at once if you pretend otherwise. Salt is the second language of water without salt. Water is a gossip that abandons you at noon. So salt is folded into bread at dawn, scattered into porridge at noon, and licked from a thumb at evening. A small cone of coarse salt lives in the quartermaster's pouch, wrapped in oiled cloth like a relic. A few grains stop the light-headed math of hyponatremia, too much water without minerals, and keep legs from writing their own complaints. Tea without a pinch is poetry. Tea with a pinch is medicine. 2 skins. 2 job skins have personalities and assignments. Clean skins touch mouths and pots. Service skins wash hands, rinse grit from wraps, wet the cloth that cools a jar's shoulder. They never swap roles, not even for a just this once. Burned rings at each neck mark ownership for the day. At rest, skins nap under reed shade. Sun fattens water with heat and waste if you let it. The small miracle is the damp cloth over a clay jar, evaporation stealing a degree or 2 for pennies. Children fetch that cloth with the gravity usually reserved for bells, caches. Water written into the land roots keeps secrets in friendly ground. Half-skins buried shallow beneath a leaning stone. 3 pebbles laid like a signature, a palm rib pointing east. A shard of blue pottery no dune can forge. The map never lives in one place. It is a story in the lead's head, a sketch in the rearguard's pouch, and a proverb told while readying a halter. After the windbreak that looks like a sleeping goat counts 7 tongues of sand. The stone that leans like your uncle hides a drink. Memory beats ink when paper sweats. Clean comes before plenty water you can see through still needs help. The caravan's kit is humble and effective. Cloth to strain grit, a pinch of alum to settle stubborn clouds, a boil when fuel allows, or a tablet when it doesn't. Boil is not for every ladle. It is for mouths that matter most. Babies, elders, anyone already bargaining with heat. Pots are littered to save fuel and honesty. Steam that escapes is water the day will ask for later. The tea that persuades late morning brings a short, useful ceremony, Small cups of tea, not a kettle roaring like a market. Warm enough to wake, scant enough not to steal. Spice if there is any, a leaf of mint if luck was kind at the last garden. The tea carries a grain of salt, the way old roads do. You taste it more as relief than flavor. Animals write their own arithmetic. Camels are accountants with fur. They drink late and heavy, then walk quietly on that decision for a day. They get shade first at stops, knees cushioned on pads, noses dampened with service water if wind sulks. Donkeys sip little and often, same cadence as people, because honesty is their talent. Goats browse moisture more than drink it. Their share is discipline, not indulgence. The watermaster watches eyes more than buckets. Dull eyes are more urgent than a half-empty gourd. Signs and ethics. Dehydration is a whisper before it is a shout. Dry tongue, quiet sweat, a headache that makes the horizon mean. The line answers with shade, salt, and a slower sentence of steps. Urine color is an alphabet everyone learns without shame. Straw is fine, amber is a nudge, tea means the day must change its mind. Overthirsty bravado earns a private correction. Ration drama ends at the ledger. Fairness beats heroics. You can't drink your own cup and borrow tomorrow's wind. Measuring without speeches gourds are scratched at quarter lines with a burnt needle. The keeper doesn't announce milestones. She just reaches for the next cool gourd in shade. A reed mat under the bundle is a small insulation. Hot sand cooks hope. The bundle's cord is tied with the breathing knot. Easy to ease, hard to spill. Everything about water is designed to work in the dark. Hygiene that travels one clean ladle touches the mouth of the skin. Cups are rinsed with service water, not the good stuff. Hands are washed at the end of the rest, not the beginning, so you leave clean and arrive ready. A tiny ashen oil smear after washing quiet skin and keeps grit from turning elbows into arguments. Emergency protocol when the math goes wrong. Storm, sick beast, a well that lied, the line shrinks. Shade first. All talk quiet. The sick drink first and measured, not to fullness but to function. 2 sips, breath, 2 sips. Salt awkward on the tongue is still a friend. The rearguard walks the prince back to the last patch of mercy and reads where luck took a step sideways. If a cache exists within an hour, the lightest pair runs with a bell and a coil of rope. If not, the line steals distance with small, repeatable steps toward dusk. Evening mercy and well etiquette wells are not conquered. They are corded. Animals drink before haggling, and away from the lips so hooves don't write mud into tomorrow's cup. Voices drop at water. The rope is shared without math, the bucket handed to strangers the way shade is. First come, first served, no speeches. Skins are filled tight, air burped out, neck sealed. And then laid in the center of camp's ring where no one will stumble them into a night's disaster. The child's game that saves adults' water discipline outlives memory when it becomes play. Children draw 3 short lines in the sand at each rest and erase one with a toe after each sip. They appoint a shade captain who decides the reed angle and gets praised for the cool that follows. They name their cups, falcon, river, wind, and must feed them at the bell. One day they grow tall and forget the rules the way adults do. The game remembers for them. The desert isn't impressed by courage. It pays attention to cadence, to ledgers kept without drama, to 3 sips that arrive exactly when they should. The caravan that drinks like this moves quieter than thirst, and that is the difference between a horizon that threatens and a horizon that simply waits. 3 sips, 2 breaths, 1 signal. Hold that little rhythm and thirst stops telling lies. In a caravan, water isn't a mood you chase when your mouth complains. It's a ledger you keep before the day decides for you. The line walks 45 minutes and rests 15. At the bell the sandals open, not off, grit is flicked from straps. A reed screen is tilted so the wind stops bragging and starts helping. And then the measured drinking begins. 3 small swallows counted with the tongue against the palate. 1, 2, 3. Coins paid to the future rather than a raid on comfort. Children learn a version that feels like play. Rinse once, swallow once, cool the lips once. Discipline disguised as a game lasts longer than speeches. People carry enough for the day, not for legends, on a hard. Bright March the car math is 1.5 to 3 litres shared across the hours. More if the air is a kill, less when the morning wind is kind, but the volume matters less than evenness. Because the body spends water the way it spends muscle, steadily, then all at once if you pretend otherwise. Salt is the second language of water, because without it the drink you trusted at breakfast abandons you by noon. So a pinch is folded into bread at dawn, scattered into porridge at midday, licked from a thumb at evening, and a small cone of coarse crystals rides an oiled cloth in the quartermaster's pouch like a relic. Tea without a grain is poetry. Tea with one is medicine. Skins are people with jobs and they don't swap them. The clean skin touches mouths and pots. The service skin washes hands, rinses grit from wraps, wets the cloth that cools a jar's shoulder for the quiet miracle of evaporation. Each neck bears a burned ring for ownership, because confusion at a rest becomes an argument at night, and both nap under shade. Sun fattens water with waste if you let it. The damp cloth draped over a clay jar lives in the children's care. They fetch it as solemnly as bells because a degree or two of cool buys a world of morale. The root keeps its secrets in the ground. Half-skins buried shallow under a leaning stone marked with 3 pebbles in a row, a palm rib pointing east, a shard of blue pottery no June can counterfeit. The map for these caches never lives in only one place. It's a story in the lead's head, a sketch in the rearguard's pouch, a proverb told while readying a halter. After the windbreak that looks like a sleeping goat counts 7 tongues of sand. The stone that leans like your uncle hides a drink. Paper sweats. Memory does not. Clean comes before plenty, and seeing through water doesn't make it safe. The kid is humble and right, cloth to strain grit. A pinch of alum to settle clouds, a boil when fuel allows. A tablet when it doesn't, used where it matters most. Babies and elders and anyone already bargaining with heat. Pots wear lids because steam that escapes as water the afternoon will demand back with interest. Late morning tea is a ceremony on purpose. Small cups, not a roaring kettle, warm enough to wake, scan enough not to steal, and a leaf of mint if luck was kind at the last garden. When the wind carries dust, the flavour that matters is relief. Animals write their own arithmetic, and the caravan reads it. Camels drink late and heavy, then walk quietly on that decision for a day. They get shade first at stops, knees cushioned on pads, noses dampened with service water when the air sulks. Donkeys sip little and often on the same cadence as people because honesty is their talent. Goats browse moisture more than drink it. Their share is discipline, not indulgence. Eyes tell the truth faster than buckets do. Bright eyes by miles. Dull eyes mean shade, salt, and a slower sentence of steps. Dehydration is a whisper before it is a shout. Dry tongue, quiet sweat. The headache that makes the horizon cruel. And the answer is not bravado but choreography. Tilt the screen. Take the 3 sips, add the pinch, soften the pace. Urine turns into an alphabet everyone learns without shame. Straw is fine, amber is a nudge, tea means the day must change its mind. Measuring happens without speeches. Gourds are scratched at quarter lines with a burnt needle. And the keeper doesn't announce milestones. She simply reaches for the next cool gourd from a shade bundle resting on a reed mat so hot sand doesn't cook hope. The bundle's cord ends in a breathing knot. A turned bite that lets you take up 3 fingers of slack without untying the world. Because skins swell at noon and shrink at night. And a caravan that respects those changes saves an hour of bad language every day. Hygiene travels lightly. 1 clean ladle kisses the mouth of the skin. Cups are rinsed with service water, not the good stuff. Hands are washed at the end of the rest so you leave clean and arrive ready. A thin smear of ashened oil after washing quiet skin and keeps grit from turning elbows into arguments. When the math goes wrong, a lying well, a storm that ate an hour, a beast that came up lame, the line shrinks first and talks later. Shade, then measured drinks for the sick, 2 sips, breath, 2 sips, salt even if awkward on the tongue, a pace that borrows distance gently from dusk. If a cache lives within an hour, the lightest pair runs with a bell and a coil of rope. If not, the caravan steals what it can with repeatable steps and eyes that refuse panic. Evening is mercy if you behave at water. Wells aren't conquered. They are courted. Animals drink before haggling and away from the lip so hooves don't write mud into tomorrow's cup. Voices drop at the rope. The bucket is shared like shade. First come, first served, no speeches. Skins are filled to the throat, burped of air, neck sealed, then laid in the safe middle of camp's ring where no tired foot will kick a night's disaster into your future. Children fix the rules into the day by turning them into play. At each rest they draw 3 short lines in the sand and erase one with a toe after each sip. They appoint a shade captain to set the reed angle and receive praise when the air cools. They name their cups, Falcon, River, Wind, and feed them at the bell. One day they will grow tall and imagine they've forgotten the rituals. The games will remember on their behalf. What the desert respects is cadence and fairness. 3 swallows arriving exactly when they should. Salt folded into food so bodies don't have to beg. Skins that keep their assignments, caches that keep their secrets. Tea that persuades more than it celebrates. Courage impresses stories. Even drinking gets you to the next horizon. When noon light turns the color of old coins and the wind starts to speak in one long sentence, the desert is not asking for bravery. It is announcing a lesson. A caravan survives storms by starting earlier than fear. The first sign is not the gust that slaps your cheek. It's the quiet that steps out of the air a minute before. Sound goes thin, birds flatten their circles. The horizon loses edges as if memory was smearing it with a thumb. That is the minute you by the next 3 hours with calm. The bell doesn't shout. It says one clear word that everyone has rehearsed since the first tent was tied: shelter. Camels turn their rumps to the wind and go to their knees on pads that were waiting for this day. Donkeys drift into the lee of bodies rather than baggage. Goats cluster where a handler's knees make a small cave. Loads do not come off. Storms don't deserve your inventory, but straps get a single. Measured tighten that says no surprises. The linking rope runs through halters at knee height, slack like a friendly hand. It is not a leash. It is a reminder that no one is required to be alone. Faces learn to be tools. Scarves double across mouth and nose with a pocket of air between cloth and skin so you don't drink sand for courage. Eye guards, woven like simple lace from palm fiber, sit over brows and barely touch the cheekbones. They look like ornament and work like good engineering. The headcloth's crown loosens half a turn to vent heat without letting grit bully the scalp. Children copy the motions they've been taught in games. Left hand lifts, right hand ties, not sits where the jaw wants to argue. Now it has something better to do. Shade is a hinge, not a wall. 2 poles and a reed screen become a slanted roof a man high. The windward cord goes hard. The leeward is allowed to sing. Pitch it too low and you trap anger. Too high and the gusts learn to throw your tent. The screen protects the small stove if food was mid-work. It also gives your eyes a softer field to read each other's faces. If the storm arrives like a door slamming, the screen lives in the pannier and you become your own architecture. Backs to wind. Elbows out to widen the lee, a child under each calm arm. The cook's pot silent and lidded at your knees, orders shrink to verbs. Kneel. Link. Cover. Tighten. Sit. Count. Your hands recite them while your mind goes polite and quiet. The scouts, who normally live ahead of the sentence, now live in its middle. They do not argue with direction. They protect position. One moves along the rope, cataloguing knots that forgot themselves. One presses his palm to each camel's neck to read heat and rhythm. Hasty pulse means fear. Slow and strong means the animal is doing your job for you. Fear is audible in sand. It makes a chittering vibration across dunes that have learned too many feet. Calm is just as audible. It is the sound of weight settling without shifting. Breathing becomes a metronome you lend to others. You take 2 slow breaths and let the caravan hear them through your shoulders. People copy without deciding to. That is how you keep a storm from turning a group into a bag of marbles. You don't call for quiet. You perform it. The bell stays silent. Bells are for decisions, not weather, and weather is making all the decisions already. The storm eats time and throws it back in clumps. Sand comes in tastes, first flour, then salt, then the bitter of mica. You do small things that look like nothing and are everything. You lift a scarf off a sweating mouth for a single breath of cooler air. You put it back before pride can ask for more. You tip a lid to check coals, then let them die. Smoke is unhelpful today. You slip a blade under a strap that began to saw its way into an edge. A reed wedge will be waiting there at the first mercy stop, but for now the blade's kiss is enough to change the music. Water is measured by math, not mercy. The sick drink first, but not to fullness. 2 sips, breath. 2 sips with a grain of salt on the tongue. Children rinse their mouths and swallow once. Rinsing moves courage back into the face. Adults wet only the inside of cheeks. Wet throats ask for more than the day can spare. Camels wait. Their quiet is insight, and the insight keeps the skins heavier for when the storm has taught what it came to teach. Donkeys are given a ladle only if eyes dull. If eyes stay frank, they go without. Honesty is their genius. You do not stand and walk because walking feels like doing something. Movement belongs to after. Unless you made the rare call to move into shelter because rock is close and real. If you must move, you move as one piece. The rope low, bodies compact, lead and rear guard only 4 paces apart, the reed screen angled as a prow. Paces are counted by a song everyone can remember when grit has borrowed their names. No hero runs ahead. A hero in a storm is a hole in a story. When the copper dulls to pewter and the sand's voice widens into a grumble, you begin the postlude. Hands brush grit from eyelids with the back of the finger. Never rub sand into the lens. Scarves loosen. Faces appear by degrees. Animals rise tail first, then heads, then the long unscrolling of the camel's body back into height. The rope is coiled and laid so it will not teach knots to curious feet. The reed screen is shaken halfway only. You pour a palm of sand out of it later. Not now. Accounting is not cynicism. It is love. Faces are counted, not just people. Bells are counted, not just animals. Straps are pulled, not just looked at. The cook's pot is opened so everyone smells the same thing. Not a meal, a plan, the tea that says again. The first boil after a storm is not about hydration. It is about a warm, modest statement that the story continues. A pinch of salt turns the cup into a promise that the brain can cash. Now you read the world as if you did not know it 2 hours ago. Dunes have changed allegiances. The sleeping goat windbreak now throws its shade somewhere else, which means the shallow subpath under it has moved too. The scouts walk a quiet comb across the nearest lee slopes and listen to crust. They choose a new soft lane with knees before they speak it with hands. The lead tests an edging route with one animal. Only when the staffsnock agrees and the camel's neck stops arguing does the bell speak once and the caravan stands. Salt becomes medicine again. A pinch on bread before you try to prove you were never afraid. Pride tries to overcorrect. The rearguard knows this and speaks without talking. He shortens the quarter hour to 10 for one cycle, and nobody complains because there is still storm on the tongue. Animals get the first real drink. Hooves do not dig near the lip so mud isn't written into the next bucket. Everyone learns a fresh face of gratitude for the small things that never knew they were important. The reed that bent instead of broke. The knot that opened with a glove on. The child who remembered the song that kept 4 bodies moving like one to tea night. The storm will pretend to be a story. And people will let it, because that's how fear shrugs off its last coat. But the truth of a storm is not in adjectives. It's in rehearsal. The minute you heard the quiet and tied instead of telling yourself you had time. The way you knelt before kneeling was urgent. The chord low, not high. The screen is hinge, not bravado. The 2 sips, the breath, the 2 sips. The bell silent when weather spoke. The shared breath you didn't announce. If there is a secret, it is that none of this was secret. It was ordinary discipline, smoothed by practice until it looked like grace. Illness on the road begins as manners that failed. A blister you called character, a cough you called dust, a headache you called weather. The caravan's clinic is a reed mat in shade, a needle held in clean flame, a cup of salted tea that makes the world reasonable, a pace softened by one breath. Medicine is not a miracle you carry. It is a choreography you remember before pride has a chance to speak. You start with the alphabet of looking. Eyes tell on everything. Bright eyes by miles. Dull eyes whisper fever or thirst. Eyes that shine too hard belong to heat. Cool the crown, slow the sentence, add a grain of salt to the next sip. Skin speaks in gloss and grit. If sweat vanishes as fast as it appears, the body is spending itself. If skin feels powdered and papery, water is already a rumor. Tongue is a ledger. Pink and quick is fine. Dry and pale is debt. Gait is the first poem of trouble. The foot that lands a fraction heavy, the shoulder that rises a degree early. The rearguard hears these poems when the owner is still performing bravery. The fix is always kinder than the story. Blister care is a ritual of respect. Sit the person in the lee of the screen. Open sandals. Let feet breathe like animals coming out of a stall. Clean the skin with service water and a square of cloth. Flame the needle until it sings. Cool it in the shade of your palm. Pierce at the edge, not the roof, so the skin remains a living bandage. Press gently with a clean thumb to drain. Lay a whisper of ashened oil where the blister met air, not on raw dermis. Dust a pinch of starch or dry clay if you carry it. Replace the sandal with its straps honest and wide. The person walks in the middle of the line where the ground is better and eyes are many. You have not made them weak. You have made the caravan smart. Heat is a sly accountant. It takes first from the mouth. Words go easy and empty. Then from the legs. Stride shortens while pride lengthens. Then from the head. Jokes come too fast or not at all. The answer is shade before heroics. Tilt the reed until wind folds. Sit the person so they see faces, not horizon. Place a small damp pad under the crown cloth, not across the skull. Give 2 sips, then a breath, then 2 sips, a grain of salt on the tongue that feels like sand until it tastes like relief. Loosen the belt a finger so the stomach can stop clenching. Lower the metronome of steps for 10 minutes without making an announcement of it. If sweat has truly stopped and the skin is hot and dry, you are past argument. Cool slowly, never with shock. Fan with the screen, wet wrists and ankles. Talk about ordinary things until the person answers with a sentence shaped like themselves again. Dust is not a villain. Panic is. Eyes full of grit are cleaned with patience, not rub. Rinse from the temple down, not across. Sluice once, then wait for blinking to do its ancient job. A second rinse gets the last insult. A dab of clean oil at the lash line can keep the next hour from repeating the lesson. A cough that belongs to morning is nothing. A cough that belongs to noon deserves smaller steps and less talk. If the cough bites the ribs, lean the person forward, turn them away from the sand's blow, let them curse quietly between sips. The body will take the hint and stop guarding. Honey is a luxury that weighs as little as a story. A single spoon is enough to tell the throat that the world is not a file. Cuts are accidents. Infections are choices. Wash with service water until boredom, not until drama. You are not polishing silver. You are evicting stories. If you carry soap, let it work and then leave. Soap that lingers is a worse guest than dust. If bleeding is honest but not loud, press with clean cloth and hum. The hum is for the hands, not the wound. For a deeper cut in a calm place, stitch with palm thread you've pulled across wax. Stitches live closer than vanity. 3 millimeters buys more healing than 7. If the wound argues when the sun climbs, accept that you are now a night walker for a few days. Sleep earlier, move gentler, teach the schedule to carry the person rather than asking the person to carry the schedule. Bites have a hierarchy. Wash. Watch. And walk unless the swelling tries to write a new shape out of the limb. Scorpion sting stings the story more than the system most days. Cool the sight, talk the fear out of the face, keep the hand or foot working at the pace of song. Snake is a different grammar. You do not cut, you do not suck, you do not tourniquet. You lay the person down in the kindest shade you can afford. Splint the bitten limb in neutral. Loosen jewelry. Mark the margin of swelling with charcoal and thyme. And walk the whole caravan accordingly. Calm, constant, without bargaining. If antivenom lives at the next oasis and the day is young, you buy distance with order. If the day is old, You by night with patience and a watch that does not blink. Fever is a slow theatre. At noon it looks like stubbornness. At night it smells like wool left damp. You let the person breathe. You wipe the neck and chest with a cloth that remembers rivers. You put sleep on a mat where wind can find it without making a production. And you simplify. Food without fry, water without glory. Shade like a sentence with many commas. If your kit carries willow bark or a measured tablet of plain medicine, you use it after the body has been given the obvious. Water, rest, salt. You write the person into a smaller part for a day. No lifting, no scouting, no pride. The caravan succeeds by how gently it edits roles. Stomach rebellions are common and expensive. Water neat sometimes feeds the trouble. Water tamed with salt and a whisper of sugar often calms it. A basin lives under the screen, not at the wind's mercy, so dignity can keep company with biology. Rice water is a doctor with a wooden diploma. Crushed dates and a pinch of salt turn it into a handshake the gut understands. If nausea wants to marry the day, you shrink the person's horizon. Sit where the animal's shoulder is a moving wall, watch the rope's rhythm, count knots, breathe in the animal's pace. Human bodies remember boats. You teach them the caravan is a boat. Hands are medicine before tools. A palm on a forehead is a thermometer that never runs out of mercury. Fingers along the neck red pulse in sentences. Steady and slow is the animal teaching you how to behave. Fast and thin is the story asking for edits. Knuckles pressed against the calf find dehydration that lips lie about. A slow rebound is a nudge. A lazy rebound is an instruction. You memorize faces in the morning so you can see the wrong eyebrow at noon. The kit is small because discipline is big. A needle that remembers flame. Palm thread waxed to silence. A straight needle and a curved. A reed spacer that is a splint in miniature. A wrapped cone of salt. A little jar where ash and oil live like a married couple. A folded cloth that used to be a shirt and is now a clinic. A vial or two of modern confidence if the road has been kind to your purse. Antiseptic, a strip of tablets that lower fever's voice without erasing its warning. What you refuse to carry is the appetite for heroics, heavy things that promise miracles and deliver delay. You choose instead the habit that every person carries something. The child holds the damp pad for the crowns. The elder keeps the salt. The apprentice is in charge of flame. The cook keeps time. When harm visits an animal, you use the same grammar with different nouns. A donkey's heel bulb blister is lanced at the edge and dressed thin. The donkey walks where footprints are polite. A camel's callus that reddens gets a felt ring. If you have no felt, twist palm fiber soft and anchor it under the girth. You have turned pressure into conversation. A goat's thorn is removed. The little hole washed and ignored by you and celebrated by the goat with immediate indignation and then pride. Creatures are better at forgiving bodies than people are. You learn from them and keep moving. Contagion is a caravan word for we forgot to share air correctly. Tents are low at night, doors raised at dawn. Coughing people tell their stories downwind. Hands rinse at the end of rest, not the beginning, so you leave clean and arrive ready. Cups kiss the clean ladle and not the skin. The ladle kisses the clean skin and not the cup. If a cold passes through like a rumor, you shorten songs and lengthen sleep for 3 days. Whispering is the immune system's favorite language. Morale is medicine with the dosage written in jokes. The cook promises to retell everyone's complaints at camp with better lines. The promise keeps mouths from wasting water on grudge. A small praise does more than a big lecture. You caught that early. You drank on time. You asked before it hurt. The brain believes praise and returns the favor with compliance. Fear is allowed to say its name once. After that it must be turned into a task. Hold this rope. Count to 30. Decide the reed angle. People who are asked to be useful forget to measure panic. The day ends with a clinic that looks like grooming. Feet are washed quickly and dried thoroughly. Skin is encouraged to be the same person tomorrow it was this morning. Straps are checked where they remembered to lie and where they tried to argue. Salt returns, not as punishment but as punctuation. Tea is brewed and called by its right name. Again, and the word lowers shoulders that do not know how high they have climbed. The stars look like advice. You ignore the adjectives and keep the verbs: measure, shade, sip, loosen, tighten, rest. The caravan sleeps because it has practiced sleep all day, in every small repair, every not quite urgent stop that arrived while there was still kindness left in the hour, every decision that chose boring over brave. Cooking at noon is not a feast, it's a negotiation. The sun has already claimed the loud verbs: blaze, sear, scorch, so the caravan uses the quiet ones: simmer, soften, steep. If breakfast is permission to begin, midday cooking is permission to continue, a modest flame that keeps morale awake without making thirst right the afternoon. Fire is geometry before it is heat. In wind, a big fire becomes a gossip, carrying smoke and sparks into everything. A small, tight cone behaves. The cook builds a pyramid no higher than a forearm with twigs for quick flame, dung cakes for steady heart, and date pits as the patient accountant that holds embers. The hearth is a shallow scrape lined with a ring of stones no bigger than a fist. Stones that shout when wet or crack at first kiss of heat aren't stones. They're trouble. Reject them. The ring's job is plain: keep flame narrow, hold a lid safely, make smoke predictable. Shade is the first ingredient. A reed screen pitched as a hinge, windward cord hard, leeward cord singing, turns gusts into a polite stream. Smoke, like people, prefers doorways to walls. Give it a slant and it leaves without complaining. The pot sits where smoke is a roof, not a room. The cook reads air by elbow. If the elbow feels a push, the screen is wrong. If it forgets the wind exists, the angle is right. Shade above the water bundle matters as much as shade above the stove. Heat you don't create is heat you don't have to cure. Pots wear lids like good manners. A lidded stew keeps steam for supper instead of loaning it to the sky. The lid turns a fistful of fuel into an hour of persuasion. You lift the lid to stir, not to think. Thinking is done beforehand when ingredients are still nouns. A simple trivet, 3 stones, same height, keeps the pot honest over the cone so flame licks, doesn't scold. The menu is the day's diplomacy. Lentils forgive rush and reward patience. They become soup with salt, a whisper of oil, and the shy friendship of cumin. Rice, if water is truly friendly, cooks in a measure you can remember with your hand. First joined a finger above the grain, lid on, no speeches. Flatbread belongs at noon only if the wind is courteous. Otherwise the afternoon will smell like burnt pride. Dates, nuts, dried figs are travel's best punctuation. No water cost to chew, but they return memory to eyes that have been practicing sand. A handful of dried greens stirred in at the last minute tells the body a story about shade. The body believes stories and behaves. Salt is the unglamorous co-cook. Without it, food becomes theatre and water walks away. A pinch in the pot is less dramatic than a pinch on the tongue, but does the same housekeeping. Keeps the ledger true so sweat and appetite stay in business together. The cook watches for the 3 lies. Too much browning, you're frying because you're bored. Lower the flame. Too much stirring, you're anxious. Let the lid work. Too much spice, you're trying to fix air with scent. Save perfume for dusk. Smoke wants a job, not a stage. It should stream, not swirl. If smoke flows low across the sand as if late for something, the screen angle is right. If it climbs into faces, you have made a wall. Adjust the gap at the ground, a hand's width. Invites feed air. No gap chokes the fire and makes it complain in soot. Soot is grief that didn't get handled. The pot will remember it tomorrow if you let it. Water at the cook site is 3 citizens, clean for mouths and food, service for washing and cooling, and a little rinsing bowl that lives only for hands. Cups kiss the clean ladle. The ladle kisses the clean skin, not the cup. The bowl earns everyone's hands at the end of the rest, so you leave clean and arrive ready. The cook keeps a rag and ash habit. Ash makes grease polite. A damp rag finishes the truce. You do not polish copper at noon. You simply persuade metal not to carry yesterday into tomorrow. Noise is rationed like fuel. A clatter of lids means the cook has become an orchestra instead of a steward. Good kitchens in bad weather sound like conversation you'd fall asleep to. Lid lift, spoon whisper, The small applause of boil when the flame is exactly right. The kettle goes first because tea buys patience. A thread of mint turns breath into manners. Cumin tells the belly it has a friend. A grain of salt inside the cup makes tea into a small clinic. No one is allowed to lecture at the kettle. Tea remembers tone and returns it. Fuel is packed like sentences. Twigs at the cone's throat, dung around them like calm elders, pits in a shallow pocket where they can glow and wait. You feed the cone the way you feed a story. Small additions, timed, never a heap. If the flame shows teeth, you smother with a flat of dung for 2 breaths. If it sulks, lift a twig and let more air in at the cone's feet. A good fire is an introvert. It does excellent work when not asked to perform. Tasks are medicine disguised as jobs. The child is shade captain, decides the read angle and gets praised for the cool that follows. The apprentice is flame reader, names. The fire's moods, coaxing, whispering, sulking, and adjusts without speeches. The elder is waterkeeper, measure sips and keeps the good skins neck proud with shade. The cook orchestrates but does not rescue. Rescue is expensive and teaches panic how to walk. You plan plates like you plan paces. The first bowl is small and fast, a broth that lands in the blood without asking the gut to hold a debate. The second is slow and steady, lentils that carry the next hour, eaten with the quiet that makes fatigue remember it is only temporary. Food is not dramatic. It is predictable kindness. That is why dessert at noon is not sugar but permission. A date per person, an almond if the road has been generous, the joke that is always told at this exact minute because laughter moves heat out of the ribs. Allergy belongs in the Caravan's dictionary. Even old roads meet new bodies. Chickpea itch, sesame sulk, a mouth that argues with mint. You learn them once and write them on the inside of the lid in chalk. The cook keeps a spare spoon for the one bowl that avoids today's spice. The spoon never touches the big pot. This isn't luxury, it's mileage. People who can eat what loves them walk farther. Ash is a treasury when it cools. It dries a blistered strap hole when mixed with a breath of oil. It seals a jar lid. Ash plus water plus a drop of fat paints into. A flexible line that keeps dust out without asking you to swear at it tomorrow. It brushes pots without drinking clean water. It sweetens a latrine pit in ground too proud to accept your biology without ceremony. You do not waste ash. Ash is what fire learned and will teach you if asked politely. When wind misbehaves, the kitchen shrinks rather than fights. The cone becomes lower and tighter. The lid stays on. The menu says broth and means it. If sand arrives like grammar, strict, sudden, you close the book, kill the flame with a flat, lid the pot, slide it into the panniers lee, and let hunger wait for weather. Heroic meals right heroic thirst. A calm cook saves a day in which nothing else was interested in saving you. Cleaning is not after, it is part of cooking. You quench embers to safe, not to cold, so the pit won't wake itself in a jealous gust. You scatter what cannot be taken, pack what can, ash to the jar, pits to the small oiled sack, twigs back into the bundle with their cut ends even so tomorrow's hand doesn't learn splinters. The hearth ring stones are left like footprints. That should fade. You do not build monuments in borrowed kitchens. As the kettle sighs for the last time, the bell will speak once. That vowel means walk again. Bowls are wiped, not washed, to a clean that honors water. Spoons live in a cloth that smells of cumin instead of defeat. The screen folds to a strap and sits atop the reed bundle with a memory of angles. The pot rides high and light, lid tied with a loop you can free with one hand. The fire's heart, those date pits, rides in the core of a pannier where jostle cannot steal them. At night there will be a shortcut to warmth. Food in the middle is a bridge, not a festival. The body crosses it and finds the next hour less impossible. The cook is a cartographer of small mercies, shade drawn as a wedge on air, flame drawn as a column the width of a wrist, water drawn as sips arranged across time instead of poured into a single brave mistake. When you walk away, the place where you ate looks like it never knew you, except for the good memory that lingers in the nose, stew that behaved, smoke that had manners, tea that said the oldest caravan word, again. A market on the road is not a place. It's a choreography that assembles itself where water and shade decide they can be neighbors. The caravan arrives dusty, hopeful, suspicious of its own hunger for noise. Trade works if hospitality speaks first and arithmetic speaks last. You can tell whether a town understands this by how it treats animals before it counts coins. Arrival is a soft invasion with rules. Voices lower near the well. Hooves don't churn the lip into tomorrow's mud. Animals first. Camels are led a little way off and watered from troughs, not from the rope and bucket that touch mouths. Donkeys sip in turn under shade. Goats browse a tethered brush bundle so they don't interview sacks. While beasts remember their manners, loads are aired, pannier lids open like gills, jars stood on reed mats, cloth bales loosened so heat can leave without carrying scent into rumour. A caravan that rushes to sell before it cools smells like desperation. Buyers read that faster than ledgers. Mats draw borders that tents pretend to ignore. You do not spill wares into the lane. You lay a narrow carpet of goods along the edge of your space, leaving a footpath for people who are not your customers. Heavy things sit low and forward where hands can test them without bending spines. Fragile things sit back on rope rings. Food sits where flies are least interested, under a gauze or reed screen that is a promise more than a shield. Price is not shouted. It is present, chalk on a slat, a string with knots counting weight, a pile of stones that shrink the way a number does when a buyer and seller share a joke. Hospitality is the first currency. You pour tea for the person whose eyes rest on your goods even if their purse will stay quiet. Dates and mint cost less than mistrust. You trade news before numbers. Road stories, wind gossip, the honesty of wells, the tax collector's recent mood. The line between courtesy and intelligence is a thin reed. You walk it without stepping on someone's pride. A town that withholds tea is a town that will haggle like a knife. You do business in such places, briefly, cleanly, and move on. Weights are not opinions. Every caravan keeps a truth weight, a small stone or bronze piece whose bulk cannot be bribed. You set it on the cellar scale, and if the arms don't agree with gravity, you smile and lay your own scale down. No speeches. Scales do not like theatrics. A baker's dozen exists here as a traveller's handful, a habit of rounding in favour of goodwill when the ledger can afford it. The ledger is a wooden tablet rubbed with oil, then chalked. A wet rag erases mistake without drama. Names sit beside marks, one for today's market, one for a promise at the next. Credit is not romance. It's a quiet rope across a river. You extend it to people who looked after your animals without being asked. Bargaining is music. Verse 1, exaggeration. Verse 2, laughter at the exaggeration. Verse 3, the number you both already knew when you met. Good haggling is a relief, not a duel. It ends with two people feeling that hospitality bought the discount. You do not bleed a price down to bone and expect the cloth to keep you dry later. You also do not let your own pride raise your rate above market for the pleasure of a story. The best bargains don't travel. They repeat. Taxes are tolls with costumes. The collector arrives with a clerk and a reputation. If the reputation is honest, you pay and receive a token, a scrap of stamped tin, a colour thread tied to a pannier strap, a mark on your tablet that a board guard will recognize at the next gate. If the reputation is a rumour of greed, you pay and also rearrange. The heaviest bundles move into the ring's middle at night. The watch doubles. The story of your route changes tone. You do not deny authority. You change your choreography so the appetite has less to feast on. Never argue with a stamp that can make your day shorter by a mile. Just make sure your own mark survives the rain. Security is etiquette wearing boots. The camp ring tightens at market edges. Strangers who wander with too much curiosity are greeted with jobs. Hold this rope, help tilt this reed, because useful hands stop counting what isn't theirs. The bell still means things here. 1 for halt ledger, 2 for bring animals closer, 3 for we tell this story at the next place instead. Children learn to see faces twice, once when a man jokes, again when he thinks no one is looking. Not because strangers are wolves, but because markets are theatres and you must watch between the lines. Trade favours begin as courtesies and become alliances. A shopkeeper who keeps your waterskins in his back room while you nap under the arcades receives a small gift at sunset, a coil of palm rope, a packet of dates wrapped like a letter, a story he didn't know about a garden 2 days east. Gifts travel lighter than debts. A smith who hammers a strap rivet for bread and thanks becomes your rivet forever. A woman at the dye vats who lets you steep a torn scarf in her spent bath receives news of a family in the north when you pass their well. The road is held together with these threads. You decide how much weight they can take. Quarantine is kindness disguised as caution. Food that spoils quickly sits downwind of sleeping. Grain that must rest from heat before it can be stored sleeps under a guard of cats and children with slings. People coughing talk to each other at the breezy end of the market. You buy their lemons and ginger. You do not buy their breath. The latrine is found, used, and praised. A market that has one is a town that divided its pride correctly. Water jugs are filled and marked, 1 notch for drinking, 1 cross for washing, so no evening hand reaches for the wrong neck. Markets that wash their own hands send caravans out healthy. Caravans that wash theirs return welcome next season. Language is a toolkit wider than words. You learn greetings in 3 dialects, the formal for officials, the friendly for neighbors, the shy for children. You learn the words for measure, fair, again, later, no offense, as you wish. You keep one joke that travels and never grows mean. Joke is insurance that tastes like fruit. If you must say no, you offer the why wrapped in respect. Our animals are tired. We have to reach the windbreak before dusk. This cloth must arrive uncreased. People hear care in a specific reason. They hear insult in a vague one. Women in the caravan and in town make trade move like water, around blocks and through cracks. A mat laid by a mother becomes a small shop. A bench under lattice turns into a bargaining school. Children carry coins inside a knotted cloth, not in open fingers. They buy bread and come back with more news than flour. Elders sit at edges where they can nod bargains along and tie them off with proverb and palm. 2 fair measures are 1 road. A well is a market with no stalls. A cheap rope is a long story. Accounting ends at dusk in a circle that looks like dinner. The ledger opens. Marks become piles. Piles become plans. You parcel out the road's new responsibilities. Who will carry spice scents so goats don't? Who will keep needles and wax now that the kid is richer? Who will wake early to buy figs for the child who sang 4 rests without complaint? You pay the tired first, the person who watched the animal sleep, the one whose lungs did the market shouting, the apprentice who discovered how to make a stranger into a helper without making them into a friend. Your last act is to write 3 letters on the inside of a pannier lid, where morning won't lie, W for water topped and cool, M for mats dry and rolled, B for bell rope coiled by the right hand. Trade is held in place by small letters as much as by large coins. Departure is neither stealth nor parade. You leave as you arrived. Lower voices by the well, clean buckets. A nod to the woman who kept the shade from arguing with your pots. A bell that says once, we are a sentence again. Out on the road. The market shrinks to a smell that lingers in cloth and hair. Cumin and soap, mint and iron, a hint of dye. If you traded correctly, the memory warms without catching. If you made errors, the lesson rides where you can. Reach it without ceremony. The chalk mark that says ask for the scale next time. The knot on the rope that says, not that gatekeeper again, the coin. You tape to the ledger because it tells a story you want to. Remember, how a fair measure bought an ally. How a soft no bought a morning. How hospitality bought a mile of quiet. Markets write a caravan into the world's book. The handwriting you use, polite, precise, with a good stroke on the tail of thank you, decides whether the next chapter will be easier to read. Trade is not a win. It's a way of touching a place lightly enough that it wants you to touch it again. There is no secret beyond that, except to pour tea before you count, and to count as if you expect to pour tea here next season. The desert respects that kind of confidence. Night isn't only darkness. It's the workshop where a caravan repairs its hourglass. A good camp looks simple from far away, a ring of low fires. Animals beyond, voices like wool, but up close it's geometry and ritual. 100 tiny decisions that persuade sleep to arrive and danger to lose interest. You don't collapse into night. You build it. You start by reading wind and ground together. The ring's mouth faces the leeward side so a breeze can comb smoke away and carry scents outward, not into lungs. The ground under the ring is firm, not proud, hard enough to deny hooves a trench, soft enough that backs don't remember every pebble. The latrine is dug crosswind and downgrade, a polite walk away, never behind a bush that looks welcoming at dusk and becomes a rumour by dawn. The cook's hearth sits where wind won't bully sparks toward canvas. Tonight's kitchen is a small cone again, embers, not performances. Animals form the outer circle, faces out, tails in. Halters linked loosely at knee height so a startle becomes a tug and a tug becomes a signal. Camels kneel where sand remembers their weight. Donkeys stand with noses just past the ring, reading the world like librarians of smell. Goats are tethered to a travelling brush bundle that a child drags slowly until the Caprine Parliament votes for boredom. The bell rope is coiled and hangs where a sleepy hand can find it without thought. Inside, people turn space into tasks. Sleeping mats lie with their heads toward the ring centre and feet toward the fire. A hand's breadth from the next mat keeps friendship from becoming insomnia. Shoes live inside each sleeper's blanket fold, not at the mat's edge where a wandering goat can author tomorrow's hunt. Waterskins lie in the ring's middle, necks capped and shaded. You do not trip on your thirst in the dark. The reed screen that kept noon honest now stands as a windbreak for the kettle. At night it is a librarian of embers and talk, watches are paired, always two, never one, because night shrinks the courage of singles and doubles the attention of partners. First watch belongs to those with long afternoons in their legs but short stories in their mouths. Last watch belongs to those who wake like cats. The watch route is a figure 8, one loop tracing the animal ring, one loop tracing the sleeping ring, a twist where the kettle lives. The duty is quiet. Listen for the syllable that doesn't belong, metal that ticks, leather that sighs the wrong way, steps that remember a speed you didn't authorize. You learn the night's grammar, jackal gossip, wind rehearsals, a beetle's click like a dropped bead. Novelty, not volume, is the alarm. Food for evening is heavy enough to anchor sleep, light enough to forgive. Stew that simmered modestly at noon now grows shoulders, lentils thickened. Grain finished under a lid, a wedge of flatbread warmed against a stone. A thread of oil that persuades the day to taste like generosity. Tea is richer and slower, mint if you have it, anise if you're telling old stories, cinnamon if morale has opinions. Salt returns like punctuation, on the thumb, in the pot, in the small tales that people trade. No frying. Smoke is a thief at night, carrying scent to noses you didn't invite. Repairs belong to the golden hour between bowls and stars. The awl and palm thread appear. Stitches close the day's small betrayals before they recruit friends. A strap that sang in heat gets its felt washer. A pannier stave receives a reed wedge and a tap. A jar lip is painted with ash water oil paste that dries into a flexible halo. Children hold the lamp and name constellations from a travelling map drawn on a pannier lid, a crude North Star. The Pleiades like a sprinkle of grain, the river of the Milky Way that convinces thirsty minds to be patient. Apprentices practice the breathing knot with eyes closed, 3 breaths, turn, slide, stop, rope that obeys thought. Hygiene is sleep's first cousin. Hands wash at the end, not the beginning. Cups kiss the clean ladle, not the skin. Faces get a damp cloth's attention at brow and neck so dreams smell like mint and not like dust. Feet are inspected with the pomp of a parade. Blisters lanced at the edge with a flame-cleaned needle, ashen oil laid thin, sandals laced honestly. The rear guard runs a thumb along a calf to watch skin rebound. Slow rebound earns a longer pillow and a kinder place in the line tomorrow. People cough downwind by habit. Their stories are heard there too, because compassion pointed the right way is as sanitary as soap security wears etiquette's clothes. Strangers who wander close are offered jobs. Help angle this screen, hold this rope, taste this tea, because useful hands seldom invent mischief. The taxman's cousin, the ambitious porter, the gossip, Each is folded into a small favor that decides how they'll remember you at first light. Nothing valuable sleeps at the ring's edge. Where's rest behind sleepers, not between a sleeper and the night. The ledger sits under a sleeping mat or wears a neck cord on the quartermaster. Wind cannot read, but hands can forget, and you stage against both. Fire discipline is what keeps morning from reading like grief. Embers are banked inward beneath, as so a picky gust doesn't wake them into theatre. The hearth ring is left low, stones never stacked higher than a hand. High rings remember the temptation to add wood. The kettle's last sigh is permission, not a summons. Once it speaks, lids go on, spoons enter a cloth that smells like cumin and lint, and bowls are wiped with a scrap of bread that turns into a last bite. Grease dies in ash, not in sand. Future hands will bless you for the difference. Sleep architecture has layers. First, the light. Lamps go out in a polite wave, not a drama. Second, the voices. Stories shrink to proverbs, proverbs to sighs. Third, the bodies. Blankets pull over shoulder blades while toes still feel the fire's apology. 2 extra habits and 100 small catastrophes. A pocket of air left at the mouth when scarves cross the face. You breathe. The cloth doesn't drink your breath, and a cheek turned toward a friend. Not the darkness. Humans share peace by osmosis. Children fall asleep against wool that smells faintly of smoke and spice. Elders test the night air with a fingertip and decide it is gentle enough to trust. Night becomes a workshop for instruments that hate daylight. The scale is tuned and written with a chalk that loves darkness. Needles are counted and slicked with beeswax. The truth weight kisses the palm and returns to its pouch. The small tin tax token is tested with a fingernail and told to behave. The smith among you, if you carry one, hands around a file and a story about iron learning patience. The story files edges off of fear due rights meanwhile. You take it seriously in climates that grant it. Reeds left half erect will comb moisture into jars wrapped in cloth. Fabrics, scarves, shirts, are clipped where they can drink drop by drop and become mornings cool. Where night is dry, you chase not dew but temperature. Skins sleep in the ring center so their cool is a common good. Jars hug shade drawn by canvas and sleeping knees. A breeze makes a low river you can feel across ankles. You shift mats an inch to live in it, not against it. Watchers trade with a touch at the shoulder, never a voice. The new pair repeats the night's dictionary quietly. 1 small laugh east, fox. 2 soft knocks on stone north, rope against a peg. A distant bell that isn't yours, another caravan, or goats foolish enough to gossip. The moon argues with sleep some nights. You answer by pulling the reed screen to filter light into cloth. Stars glare on certain dunes. You reply by turning faces inward until the world forgets to brag. Every camp hides a chapel. For some, it's a prayer, silent, shoulder to sand. For others, a page of account, chalk on wood. For most, it's a story shaped like gratitude. Again was possible. You made it to a ring that will remember your shape tomorrow. You count in your head what tomorrow owes and what it doesn't. Straps in good humor, skins proud and cool, a thorn you already pulled from your heel, a merciful wind. You fall asleep before you reach the end of the list. Dawn's rehearsal happens in the last watch. Embers are teased into orange confession with a reed. The kettle sits like a crown. Animals stir and arrange their legs as if they had planned to be graceful. The ring opens at its mouth toward the pale east. Mats roll to their homes. Shoes find feet without drama. The night's geometry dissolves into morning's choreography. The bell speaks once, a vowel meaning enough, and the caravan stands. If you did camp correctly, you leave no monuments, only the shallow memory of circles and a kindness in the air that lingers like steam from a cup someone just set down. The best workshops travel in a pouch and borrow a bit of shade. A caravan that lasts is a caravan that mends, quietly, immediately, before a fray recruits friends and a squeak learns to sing. Repairs are not interruptions. They're how the road agrees to keep being a road. You don't wait for evening if the fix belongs to noon. You don't make the fire big if the stitch belongs to shade. You sit, you breathe, you put the world back into its hinge. First comes listening. A load that was honest at dawn starts telling jokes by mid-morning. A dry stitch line creaks. A pannier rib clicks against a bottle like 2 coins flirting. A strap whistles because it's biting an edge. None of these is drama. All of them are appointments. The rear guard hears the wrong syllable and taps the bell once. The line folds a small pocket of workshop from air, reed screen angled, all set down like a pen, thread warmed against a palm until wax wakes its memory. You don't unpack the world. You open just enough to correct it. Leather tells time in stitches. You oil thread grooves, not faces. Leather wants to drink at its seams. A strap hole that has begun to oval is a prophecy. You answer with a rawhide washer punched in with the awl and oiled at the edges so it becomes invisible to stress. A girth tongue that scolds the buckle gets a felt pad for manners. If there's no felt, you twist palm fiber into a soft donut and pretend it's felt until the next town. You never tighten against an inhale. Cinch on the sigh. Leather that closes on breath forgives miles you haven't walked yet. Wicker is a patient witness. A pannier stave that gaps at the rim accepts a reed wedge tapped with the awl's butt. The sound changes from hollow to honest, and the whole basket stops composing poetry at every step. A cracked rim is not a funeral. Spiral wrap with palm thread, waxed, then kiss with warm pitch at dusk so dust cannot move in. Pitch is the road's lacquer. It seals a wound on wood, a seam on clay, a boast on your pride. It is used sparingly, like anger, and then put away. Rope is a language you conjugate. Knots should release cold-fingered in the dark. Tighten with a tug you can find with your mind elsewhere. The breathing knot is the grammar of the day. A cinch finished with a turned bite that slides only when asked. You tie it wherever volume changes. Wool sacks that exhale at dusk, water skins that inhale at noon, baskets that sigh when heat thinks about leaving. Apprentices learn it with eyes closed, counting breaths. 1 to lay, 1 to turn, 1 to ask. When they get it wrong, they get it right the second time because the rope tells them what it wants. Metal is the quietest guest when you respect it. A file borrowed from the smith among you smooths the burr on a buckle's tongue that has been eating straps. 5 strokes in one direction, never soaring back and forth, and the appetite leaves. A bent hook is warmed near the cone's calm heart and straightened with a cloth wrap hand. The cloth saves your skin and your vanity. Nails are rare in moving things. The road prefers lashings, removable, inspectable, adjustable. Where metal must join, you stage leather between iron and load so vibration becomes a secret rather than a rumor. Clay is not fragile if you treat it as a living skin. A jar lip that has begun to chip receives a collar of rope rings and a smear of ash water oil paste. The paste dries into a flexible gasket that forgives knocks and still opens at market. A hairline crack can be persuaded to mind its business with a bandage of woven palm tape painted with the same paste. You don't boil in patch pots. You store and carry. If you must choose between a heavier jar that never lies and a delicate one that needs your attention, you choose truth and save your attention for animals and weather. Textiles are the road's diplomacy. A tear at a tent edge teaches you the bias. Stitches should cross the stress like a net, not chase it like a leash. Palm thread waxed in your fingers glides. UN waxed thread saws your patience. Hem raw edges immediately. Fray is theft that collects interest minute by minute. A scarf turns into 10 tools. Sun visor. Crown pad. Sling for a complaining wrist. Pre-filter for a storm. Privacy for a cough. Towel for a baby. Rope for a light bundle. Strainer for a suspicious water jar. Flag for a silent signal. Pillowcase for a tired head. You repair scarves first because they repair you all day. Wood never forgets water. A pack saddle rib that swells and bites needs a chamfer. You shave the corner into a kindness with your knife, then oil the cut so new thirst doesn't invite old cracks. Splints for any limb, human or goat, are made from that same rib's trimmings and a generosity of cloth. Splint in neutral. Joints don't forgive angles you dream up in panic. A stuck peg is asked, not forced. Tap, turn, rest, tap, turn, rest. Because a broken peg is a story that makes everyone late. Fire is a tool shop when it isn't a kitchen. A thin wire warmed and bent becomes a hook that holds a screen at the correct angle. A nail-heated red will brand a neat ownership ring on a waterskins neck without turning the skin proud. Pitch softened at the cone's edge flows into a seam like a promise and then hardens into a boundary. You never heat what you can soften with patience. You never soften what you can shorten with rope. The 15-minute roll is a troop of specialists, all 2 needles, 1 straight, 1 curved, palm thread, a sliver of beeswax, reed wedges, a felt square, rawhide strip, pitch coin, short cord, a thin knife, a folded square of fine sandpaper, a tiny pinch of alum for water tricks. Each tool has a story. You know them so that work begins as a memory rather than an experiment. The alum settles sullen water into clarity. The sandpaper makes a whistle shut up at the base of a tin cup. The wax quiets thread so it enters leather like a suggestion rather than a demand. Teaching is half the fix. Children hold the lamp, then the awl, then the thread, then the silence that repairs need. You let them discover the reed wedge sound, hollow before, solid after, and name the sounds out loud: click, thrum, hush. You turn inspection into a game with prizes that weigh nothing. Spot the edge that will eat leather wins a date. Hear the cargo that doesn't belong wins a song. Tie the breathing knot with eyes closed wins the right to carry the truth weight for an hour. Skills that arrive smiling stay when the road loses its sense of humor. Fairness is engineering. You don't repair only the loudest complaint. You repair in rotation. Today the wool pannier gets love. Tomorrow the iron crates lashings. Tonight the jar collars. The next dawn the strap holes. Rotation prevents resentment, not in people, though that too, but in materials. Leather that feels seen doesn't sulk into cracks. Wicker that's tightened sings less. Jars with collars behave in crossings. You can't hear this fairness until the afternoon you don't need it. Then it sounds like silence. Some fixes are behavior, not tools. A clink that returns every hour is not a curse. It's a path. Move the clinking thing away from its gossiping neighbor or change the gait that makes them talk. A strap that saws at a corner needs the corner tamed or the strap rerouted, not thicker oil. An apprentice who keeps over-tightening must be given the exhale to watch and the right to call the close. Hands learn more from permission than from correction. Even beauty has maintenance. Tassels that catch wind become levers. You trim them or teach them to live pointing back. Paint on a chest's lid is a future blister if you don't sand the lip. You sand, then oil, then pitch the hidden seam, and the art becomes durable instead of hungry. You engrave, not names, but reminders, on the underside of the lid, where only you will read them in the morning. Left strap sang, pit bag half, ask for scale, thank the smith. Writing is a repair to memory. The workshop respects the clock. At a rest, you open one pannier, fix one family of sins, close it. At camp, you open 2. On market days, you plan 3 and do 2, because talk steals minutes. When a storm has just finished its speech, you prioritize bindings, rope, straps, collars. When heat has had its hour, you prioritize edges, felt, chamfers, oil on thread grooves. You never fix at the lip of a slope, never invent a new lash in wind, never hold a jar to argue with a buckle. The doctrine fits in one breath because your lungs must keep room for walking. There's a sweetness at the end of a good repair, the silent test. You hoist the pannier, step back 3 paces, half close your eyes, and look for the animal inside the load. If you can still see the beast's posture instead of the cargo's ambition, you've done enough. You walk 10 steps and listen. If you hear only bells and leather breathing, you've done it right. You mark the inside of a lid with a thumbnail and put the tools away before the road invents something else to say. What you save with mending isn't just kit. It's tomorrow's temperament. Animals that aren't pinched forgive longer routes. People who trust their straps don't narrate every June. Pots that don't carry soot give the next stew a chance to be generous. Ropes that turn on ask, not demand, make loading a conversation instead of a trial. The road responds to this kind of attention the way a stubborn hinge responds to the right drop of oil. It forgets to complain. Then you walk, and the walking is the point. Not all language needs a mouth. A caravan is a soft-spoken city on the move, and its safety depends on messages that travel farther than voices and faster than pride. Signals keep the line readable the way punctuation keeps a paragraph honest. They spend no water, stir no dust, and still change the day. Hands speak first because hands are already in the story. A raised fist freezes motion without insult. It doesn't accuse, it invites attention. Palm flat, low, drifting sideways means shift weight, not panic. A tiny choreography that prevents a large stumble. Two fingers from eyes toward a ridge say, watch the seam there. Wind has cut a hollow. A slow circle at knee height tells camels kneel soon, teaches humans lower the day. If the circle tightens and flattens, the message changes. Brace for a slope. Let gravity be a partner, not a rumor. Hands do not explain more than they must. A signal that needs a paragraph is a bad signal. Cloth becomes syntax. A scarf tied high at the lead shoulder whispers water ahead. Not guaranteed, but likely. Scarf tied low means water delayed. Ration gossip. A white square lifted and held means safe crossing over soft ground already tested by an animal. A red strip flicked twice means hazard, step light. A blue ribbon at the spear tip asks the line to begin thinking of camp. You feel bodies draw closer. You hear conversations soften as people count small chores. Cloth signals are designed for the corner of your eye. The lead does not want your attention, only your compliance. Bells are punctuation you can hear over a ridge. One strike is a full stop, empty sandals, sip, check straps, measure horizon. Two is a comma, tighten ranks, the world is narrowing. Three is a semicolon with weather, storm lesson starting, shrink the sentence, collect the children. A double fast pair, 2, 2, is a rehearsal. This is what 3 will sound like if I ask for it. Bell tone matters. The lead's bell is deep, almost a vowel, and steady enough to calm. A light jingle near the rear is a shepherd's finger asking stragglers to tuck in. Bells are never anger. Their grammar, flags on the lead spear read distance the way small clouds read height. Red triangle up, hazard soon, not now. Red triangle down, hazard immediate, test with one animal. White strip dancing, wind crossing the line. Pinch the formation. Yellow knot near the spearhead, tax gay ahead. Sort your stories and fold your ledger where respect is easiest to reach. A spear with no cloth is message enough. Pace, pace, and boredom, the most expensive luxury that costs you nothing but attention. Rope carries private messages even while it holds public order. A knot at half arm on the linking rope means turn coming. Step short. A knot at quarter arm means softly slope. Brace with ankles. A twinned knot near the lead's hand means we will pass a herd. Quiet your colors, quiet your criticisms. The rope is passed with palm down, not tossed. Tossing teaches panic. A rope laid into a palm writes linking into muscle memory. Shadows are signals you don't have to invent. You walk the shade of animals and screens to save water. You read the length to save pace. When shadow shrinks to a hand's width at noon, the line shortens its ambition without commentary. When shadows stretch like sentence lines near evening, the bell stays quiet longer because the sky is writing mercy. A child can be taught to command with shade. Stand so your shadow folds over a small fire. And smoke will remember to leave faces alone. You've given an order without speaking to anyone. Animal signals are truer than ours and sometimes kinder. A camel that holds its breath and lifts its chin is telling you a slope is a rumor. Loosen the high side load by 2 fingers and thank him aloud. A donkey whose ears pin and release twice is performing weather. Find the cross breeze that's cutting the slope and ask for shorter steps. A goat that looks back and snorts is a comedian. The punchline is usually a thorn you can remove with a minute and a spare curse. The caravan learns these dialects because beasts don't lie about terrain. They only exaggerate when bored, and boredom is a management problem you can fix at night. Signals become stars and fire. A lamp lifted chest high and held steady means come to me. A lamp set down and turned once means stay where you are, I will come to you. A lamp covered and uncovered twice means quiet now. Watches at work. The cook's last kettle sigh is a social cue as real as a bell. It turns markets back into family and tells stories to lower their volume. A single ember lifted on a stick to the ring's mouth at pre-dawn is the softest reveille. People wake thinking they decided to. Markets teach a different code, polite and sharp at once. Palms shown empty as you approach a stall say you're a buyer, not a borrower. Palms hidden behind a belt say you're thinking, not hunting. Tea offered before price is the good grammar of towns. Tea withheld means money first. You comply and shorten your sentences. A seller who lays a truth weight on the scale without being asked is a stanza you'll remember. You answer by adding a traveller's handful and telling their name to the next caravan at the next well. Signals are reputation written in gestures. Storm signals have their own declensions. Copper light is already a paragraph. Silence just before is the thesis. The linking rope running knee-high is the only sentence that matters then. Scarves double, eye guards drop, and the screen becomes a hinge. You can teach this with a game. Children practice left hand lifts, right hand ties, not at the jaw until it's boring. Boredom becomes speed when sky becomes brass. The bell is silent. Storms write their own punctuation. Etiquette is a codebook too. You point with the whole hand, not a finger. Fingers are cues. You never signal across someone's face when a small step will change the angle. Dignity has the right of way. You do not use a red cloth for anything but hazard. Color is vocabulary. Save the strong words or they will stop meaning things. You don't stack signals when one will do. Redundancy reads like doubt. The lead's job is to reduce ambiguity, not to show fluency. Minimal signals make maximal sense. Training turns signals into reflex. Mornings are drills disguised as chores. The apprentice rings one bell and names the action. The child raises a fist and the line freezes half a beat and then breathes again. A second child lifts a blue ribbon and the packers tighten nets by one knot without glancing up. You measure drills the way you measure water. Small, regular, everywhere. You do not schedule competence. You season the day with it. Errors become stories before they become accidents if you let them. Someone flaps a scarf like a flag and half the line thinks hazard. You laugh, fix, and codify. Scarves are wound, not waved, unless red, and only the lead carries red. Someone rings the bell too hard, and animals say unrepeatable things. You thank the bell for its enthusiasm, then teach wrist, not arm. Tone stays even, message stays clear. Someone ties the rope high. You retie low and explain with a hand on a knee. If you shame hands, they learn to hide. Hidden hands are how lines unravel. There is also a code of kindness that never gets written and acts like the glue in all the others. You praise the right reaction once and quietly, then move on. You credit the animal when a slope is conquered, not yourself. You save the bright cloth for the child to carry 5 minutes at a time, so the task feels like honor, not labor. You let the person who made the small error give the next correct signal. Their hands will remember gratitude better than correction. You teach the names of winds and dunes, because when the world is nouns, fear has fewer pronouns when signals succeed. The caravan looks almost boring from far away, a sentence that writes itself. Commas placed where breath belongs, no italics, no exclamation marks. Up close, it's thrilling in a quiet way. A rope that moves like thought, a scarf that means water without promising it, a bell that nobody resents, hands that mean together by habit. You realize then that survival on the road is a literature. Thin strokes, tight meanings, lines you can read in dust and shadow. Learn the alphabet, and the desert stops being a riddle and becomes a book you know how to turn. Crossing is not the same as traveling. Distance is a sentence. Crossings are punctuation, commas that steady you, colons that demand preparation, a few hard semicolons that change the topic without asking. The caravan learns to treat each terrain like a ferry. Board in order, ride with quiet. Disembark with count and thanks. Dunes, lee and windward. A dune is 2 countries, the windward face that's scoured and honest, and the lee face that's soft and full of rumours. The rule is simple. Climb the windward when you can, descend the lee only when you must, and never straight down unless you want to teach the day an unforgettable lesson. On the climb, steps shorten until ankles write cursive. The line staggers like a zipper rather than marching in a groove. Each foot owns new sand, so the dune can't convert your rhythm into a trap. Loads are breathed, not bullied. Soften the high side pannier by 2 fingers, shift a soft bag toward the slope, cinch on the exhale. Descents are choreography, not gravity. Animals turn a few degrees sideways. Handlers mutter the mother syllables, and the shadow lane, that thin ribbon where the beast's shade makes cool, becomes the road. Nobody runs. Running is a story you'll pay for at the bottom with rope and apologies, slip faces and cornices. The dune's lip is where dunes keep their jokes. Test with a staff from a body length back. If the sand sighs without collapsing, you may pass one animal at a time with the rope twinned low, the rest waiting under a bell that refuses drama. If the lip whispers like silk under the staff, you walk the crest to a shoulder, longer, safer, faster in the book that matters. Children learn a call and response here. The lead taps, the rear answers with a low whistle, the middle repeats. The line becomes a single spine threaded through the wind's impatience, wadis, dry rivers that remember rain. A wadi is a liar in fair weather and a lawyer in storms. In dry hours, it invites you with shade and a floor of packed promise. In rain hours, sometimes rain you cannot see, it becomes a courtroom that discusses how small you are. The etiquette is strict. You enter late morning if you can, when far ridges have had time to speak any rain. You travel the shoulders, not the throat. You never pitch camp in the lowest green no matter how kindly it looks. At bends where the floor steepens, you send one animal forward unburdened. The staff reads the crust. If the knock is hollow, you're walking over memory, not earth, and memory collapses. Crossing the throat is an act, not a habit. Rope low, bells quiet, eyes searching for escape ladders, fan-shaped scree or goat paths up the bank. If clouds gather upstream, you turn the paragraph. Distances can be rewritten. Lives Lesso, Salt Flats, Sabka, and other plates of deceit. Sabka looks like a cure for hills. Flat, salt pale, a mirror that promises progress. But flats keep secrets in their underskin. The test is a heel twist. If brine gleams in the print or the crust webs with hairline fractures, you are on a drumhead stretched over trouble. Rule 1. Lighten. Water and iron move to the center of animals and as high as faith allows. Soft goods ride crowns. Fragile jars remain at the rim on rope rings that can be abandoned in a hurry without breaking. Rule 2. Widen. Spread the line so one animal does not walk into another's softened print. Think of geese, not a parade. Rule 3. Float. Lay reed mats or brush bundles under the worst of it, ferry style, leapfrogging them forward while each animal steps from raft to raft. If the day is warm and the crust weeps, you walk the edges where plants confess the ground is shallower, even if it is longer by an hour. If the crust wins an argument and you break through a knee, unload to air. Throw the rope low around the chest, pull on a rhythm you can sing. Not on panic. Sand and salt hate songs and let go when you give them. Boulder fields and stony passes. Rocky ground is honesty without manners. It won't collapse. It will bruise. The pace changes from sway to place. Every hoof and foot is chosen, not swung. Loads go silent. No clink allowed. Clink is how fractures are born. Rope gets edge guards wherever it crosses stone. Donkeys lead on rock. Their eyes are good at writing paragraphs over rubble. Camels follow because height sees too much and must be taught to trust the donkey's essay. People wear patience in their knees and hold their breath only when stepping, not for heroics but to keep the torso still as a jar. You do not hurry over stones. You edit your feet into the landscape tool by tooled defiles, cuts, and gates. Narrow places are the desert's turnstiles. They charge in time rather than coin. The choreography is posted like a prayer, uncluttered order. One animal enters, walks the throat's middle, disappears. The next begins only when the first spell fades. No load protrudes wider than a knee. People who talk loud here asked for a different job. Carry the truth weight or the spare brush. Mouths that must be useful forget to echo. Above all, nobody rests in a throat. If something snags, you reverse by the same number of breaths you advanced, counting out loud so the rope carries time back to the tail. Crosswinds and the sideways day, there are days when wind refuses to be background. Crosswinds take your steps and call them their own. Formations tighten, loads shrink, read screens live in panniers. Animals walk with heads lower, people with shoulders narrower. The pace becomes a metronome that shaves off ambition. The bell rings a kind of patience. If sand starts to fly like a script you can't read, you switch to the half-closed eye, not stoicism, optics, fewer grains under the lid. You might stop often, but you stop earlier than pride wants. Deploying the small hinge of shade just enough to make the next 100 steps not a war story, night crossing sometimes the horizon offers a bargain. Heat has left. Light has not yet arrived, and the path is flatter than a memory. Night crossing is a privilege purchased with rehearsal. Bells wear cloth to whisper. The leads lamp lives at chest height and moves like punctuation. Held means gather, dipped means halt, circled small means step down, circled wide means step up. Voices become a game. You count paces in a low chant that turns fright into meter. Animals learn the melody and carry it better than people. If the sky is full of moon, you walk the shadow lanes that moonlight writes across flats. If the night is star only, you favor the bright sand over dark patches that may be damp deceit. You drink by the clock, not by thirst, because cool mouths tell the prettiest lies. Fords and damp bottoms water is rare, but ground remembers it in the low places. A damp bottom crossing is a question you answer with tools. A staff that tests depth, a cord that measures stride in a place where stride wants to invent itself, mats that leapfrog if the skin fails your trust. Shoes are loosened. Straps are checked. Jars ride higher. Animals are permitted to sniff. A camel's opinion of a patch is worth 2 of yours. If the crust holds for 3 beats of a song, you cross on that tempo. If it shivers at 1, you retreat sideways to try again. Humility crosses faster than confidence. Sequencing and patience, every crossing has order. The scout's animal without load tastes first. Then the donkey that knows stone becomes a tutor on sand. Then the newest handler with the wisest beast, a confidence exchange. Then the heavy hearts, water and iron, where the way is proven. Children and goats travel near the bell, so instruction and comfort are both at arm's reach. The rearguard and the spare brush bring up the end. They walk in unwritten ground and catch any arrogance that fell off the cart. When the answer is wait, crossings are made by committing or by deferring. Waiting is not failure. It is a kind of strength that spends less of tomorrow. You wait when thunder speaks up valley, when salt crust glitters like a thought you can't hold, when wind turns copper and conversation stops happening naturally. Waiting drills are simple, shade-pitched. Tea small, salt pinched, straps red, animals fed a half portion to buy quiet. Apprentices practice the breathing knot with eyes closed. Children draw 7 tongues of sand and erase 1 at each bell. A crossing taken at the wrong hour becomes an anecdote for people who weren't there. A crossing taken at the right hour becomes nothing at all, which is the best kind of success. Marks and memory, you pay back good crossings by leaving useful ghosts, a reed stuck at a safe lip. 3 pebbles marking where the crust sounded honest. A shallow scrape where a mat saved a knee. You do not billboard the route. You annotate it for those who read. Your own memory gets a chalk note inside a lid. Lee Face sang, Sapka, edges only, Waddy, shoulders afternoon, Defile, 1 bell courage. Maps blown by wind are clever. Maps kept in bodies are faithful. Crossings do not reward loudness. They reward the same things the whole road loves: quiet, order, a willingness to be boring on purpose. Step shorter than pride. Test more than you explain. Move weight by fingers, not speeches. Let animals tell the truth in their dialects. And when you reach the other side, count faces, count bells, count straps. Then say again with a kettle rather than a boast. The desert approves of that word. Security on the road is mostly choreography you hope is boring. You aim for evenings that look like nothing happened. A ring that closed and opened, a ledger that totaled without drama, a pot that learned only recipes. Defense is a temperament, polite, consistent, visible enough to be read by strangers as not worth the experiment. The caravan that survives does not swagger. It signals. The first layer is shape. From a hill, your column should resemble a sentence with regular commas. Scouts a short page ahead, main line centered, rear guard where footprints are still warm. Sidewalkers at midline where jobs like clothing, shade tender, rope keeper, bell second, so hands are never empty in a way that attracts ideas. Bright cloth is rationed. A single blue at the lead spear, camp soon, and a single red triangle, hazard soon, live only on the lead. Imitation is discouraged kindly. Predators, human and animal, hunt confusion. You practice consistency until boredom becomes armor.at market edges and wells. You change shape, not volume. The ring tightens as if cold. Animals line outward, people bend inward, and one person, polite, unhurried, becomes the mouth that speaks to officials. Everyone else behaves as if busy. Pannier lids open to air, straps inspected, reed screens tilted for shade. Useful hands are hands that don't wander. You welcome strangers with tasks. Help me angle this shade. Watch this kettle. Hold while I oil the stitch lines. A thief can't audition without revealing himself when work is available. If someone refuses all tasks, you know their role. You pay attention without raising dust. Watches run on a 2-century rule, always in pairs, never alone. Lone eyes invent drama. Paired eyes write minutes. The route is a figure 8, outer loop for animals, inner loop for sleepers, a twist at the kitchen. The watches carry a short read list of sounds to ignore, goat coughs, wind rehearsals, beetle clicks, and 2 that always win attention, novel metal and foot that knows night. They speak by touch more than voice, thumb on wrist for look, knuckles on shoulder for with me, a palm on back for we wait. The bell lives nearby but sleeps. Its voice is for the moment the figure 8 becomes a circle around a problem. Signals for trouble are the same grammar as signals for dunes or storms. Familiar so fear has nowhere to hide. 1 bell, freeze and look. 2, shorten the line, eyes out. 3, not panic but posture, rope low, children to the center, animals kneel if wind hides footsteps. No one runs. Running is a story. Stories gather audiences. You prefer postures. Camels rump to wind forming a low wall. Reed screens pitch to make a soft room where decisions can think. People kneeling beside their beasts, hands on leather that will remember calm at the next command. You measure risk the way you measure water, by hour, by context, by mood of the ground. Narrow passes and defiles demand sequencing. You don't enter throats with fresh strangers behind you or ahead of you. If you must share a gate, you count out loud, not names, numbers, 1 animal, 2 animals, so the rope of time is visible. At wells with many caravans, you assume scales and tempers are both tired. You water away from the lip so your hooves don't write mud into someone's drink. You leave a small gift where labor saved you, ash at the pit, a coil of rope at the bucket, a scrubbed trough. Kindness looks like wealth. It deters cheap threats better than steel. Weapons, if you carry any, are tools before theater. A staff is a staff until it is a spear. A sling is a toy until it is a warning. A knife is a kitchen until it must be a voice. You keep them where hands reach them without lifting elbows. You never brandish. Brandishing tells the world you're interested in argument. People who want your goods prefer stories to scars. So you trade in stories. Your bell tone is deep and regular. Your animals kneel like a drill. Your children carry the bright cloth 5 minutes at a time as honor, not bait. A potential bandit watching from a ridge counts these and decides there are easier poems. Decoys are for goods, not for people. Scented loads, spices, soaps, oils. Ride where goats cannot gossip and thieves cannot smell them from the next lane. A single noisy crate, with pebbles sealed in a double wall, travels on market days. It announces wealth where you want attention and buys quiet where you don't. Ledger and coin live on a person, not in a pannier. A quartermaster wears the book on a neck cord under linen. The truth weight shares the same cord. Someone stepping close enough to touch either has already told you who they are. Conflict avoidance is a set of pre-written sentences. To the over-curious rider, we are late to reach the windbreak before dusk. To the haggler who wants a price in the wrong place, we count far from water. To the guard who prefers extended conversation, our animals are restless when the bell is hungry. Each sentence is a courtesy tied to a necessity. The trick is to give people a reason that isn't about them. Pride stands down when it's not the subject. If confrontation becomes non-fiction, you ratchet, never leap. Step 1. Posture. Shorten the line. Children to middle. Animals kneel where space allows. Step 2. Spokesperson only. Everyone else busy with visible chores. A busy caravan is a wall. Step 3. If you must show mettle, you show preparedness, not threat. Knife that cuts rope, sling that twirls once and sleeps. No one aims unless aiming must become a verb. Step 4. Leave room for the opponent to exit with a story that preserves face. We looked and found you prepared. We tested and found you polite. If money buys the minute, a toll that calls itself a tax. You pay the minute and claim the hour with the pace the bell wants. Maps of risk belong to bodies, not paper. People who notice faces remember faces. The scar on the cheek of the man who asks about your route but doesn't ask about your health. The bracelets on the hand that touches your pannier as if it belonged to them. The die on the guard's nail that matches the taxman's token. You pass these to the rear guard in ingredients, not accusations. Bracelets, left. Scar, crescent. Die, indigo. The rear guard compiles recipes. If a stew of trouble is cooking, he tastes it before it boils. Children are not shield bearers. They are eyes. You teach them polite surveillance. Notice shoes, not boasts. Notice animals, not weapons. Notice who refuses water, who refuses tea. A thirsty man who won't drink is a man who wants to leave quickly. You let him. A man who drinks twice and thanks twice is a friend you haven't learned the name of. You find it. Women in the line carry the social key ring. Their greetings open doors that men's questions would jam. They trade a song's line for a guard's smile, a proverb for a shopkeeper's better scale. Defense rides on respect shared sideways while men practice their cleverness. Night defense is geometry and humility. Your ring faces outward with animals, inward with people, and leaves a mouth toward the leeward. Fires are low and few, embers more than flames, so every new light is suspicious by definition. The watch changes without voices. Shoulder touch, the whispered dictionary of the hour. Fox east, rope against peg north, distant bell not ours. Lamps are shaded. The kettle's last sigh is both ceremony and alarm test. Who looks up when it speaks? The one who doesn't is tired. Tired is friendly, but tired also miscounts. Lures and ambushes share a smell, arranged generosity. A lone cart with a broken wheel in a throat. A tent too helpful at a gate. A man with a story about guards 2 dunes away who respect bravery. Your answer is protocol, not moralizing. Rope low, line tight, scout around, not through. Send one animal and laden before the rest. Offer help at distance. We will bring the guard to you, and watch if the story likes that plan. Real need says yes. Theatre complains, when you must hide, you hide as function, not vanishing. Bright cloth disappears into panniers. Blue goes to rope, red to pocket. Reed screens lie flat as if they were cargo. The line steps into shadow lanes of animals and dunes so from a ridge you look like windrows, not people. Silence becomes a choice made of many small choices. No clink, loads were packed right. No shout, signals exist. No cough, tea was salted, water was measured. Hiding is just competence with the volume turned down. If harm arrives despite choreography, aftercare is security. You don't let the day become legend. Legends attract sequels. You count faces, you count bells, you count straps. You brew tea that tastes like again, and you speak about what went right more than what went wrong. The rope stayed low, the bell didn't panic, the animal obeyed the circle of the hand. You repair at once what fear would like you to postpone. The strap that snarled, the knot that sulked, the reed screen that forgot its hinge. You sleep because you practice sleep all day. Ethics is part of watchcraft. You are not wolves. You are guests of a land that gossips about behavior. Pay first at wells. Leave ash neat. Tie brush where goats won't turn your camp into literature. Make neighbors. Share a fire's edge. A joke that travels. A rumor that helps. A caravan known for courtesy pays a lighter tax to randomness. The desert respects boring goodness more than dramatic bravery, and sometimes the only tactic is distance. You see dust you don't like near a horizon you do, so you add an hour to go around. You see a guard whose boredom is weaponized, so you make your business efficient and your smiles expensive. You arrive at a market where scales are theatre. You buy bread and leave scales for the next town. You remember that survival isn't winning. It's continuing. A caravan survives because jobs move like water, filling every hollow, never standing so long it breeds trouble. Titles are light, routines are heavy. Everyone learns everyone else's part well enough that absence never becomes emergency. The line is a school that pretends to be a road. Start with the spine, lead, quartermaster, rear guard. The lead reads ground and writes pace. They speak in short nouns, ridge, shoulder, shade, and in verbs you can copy, shorten, kneel, angle. They carry the staff that knocks truth out of crust and the spear that wears cloth signals, blue for camp soon, red triangle for hazard soon. The quartermaster is ledger and water, sips on the clock, salt in the food, prices written in chalk a child can read, truth weight tied to a neck cord under linen. They are also the voice that stays polite to officials while the rest of you look busy. The rear guard is the editor of everything already written. They listen to prints, tail language, strap syllables. They fix small sins before they recruit friends. If the caravan were a sentence, the lead is capital, rear is period. Quartermaster the grammar between, around the spine are the organs. Shade tender, angles the screen so wind turns from bully to butler. Ropekeeper, knee-high linking rope coiled right and laid without knots that invent themselves. Bell second, hands on the deep vowel that means halt, on the comma that tightens ranks, on the 3 that means posture not panic. Animal steward, pads, girths, salt shard, balm pot. Fire reader, cone size to the day. Lids honest, smoke with a job, kit mender, all. Wax thread, rawhide washer, reed wedges. And the runner, light, courteous, used for market errands and sudden messages. Children rotate through tiny versions of these. A shade captain for one rest, a sip counter at the next, a signal echo who repeats a fist freeze or 2-finger watch the same gesture for the row behind them. Jobs must feel like honors or they won't be remembered when heat gets loud. Drills are seasoning, not spectacle. Every morning holds 3 quiet rehearsals folded into chores. Signal drill. The lead lifts a fist. The line freezes half a breath and then breathes again. No bragging, no scolding. Someone traces 2 fingers from eyes to ridge. 3 heads turn in chorus, then go back to packing. The bell gives 1 slow strike. Sandals open, straps are glanced, gourds lift, and then are put down again. Muscle memory for the hour it will matter. Breathing not drill. A wool sack loose by 3 fingers, retied with the turnbite that slides only when asked. Eyes closed on the 3rd day, because nights unpack what days swear are settled. Storm hinge, scarves doubled over nose and mouth, woven eye guards slip down. Screen pitched as a slanted roof at a man's height. Linking rope low, child's left hand lifts, right hand ties, not at the jaw. Speed without hurry. Apprentices learn by owning a failure before it matters. The lead will pick a harmless lie in the land, mirage soft valley that looks nearer than it lives, and ask the apprentice to chart it. The cord runs long, the staff hears a hollow. The apprentice returns a new map and no one teases because the lesson turned into a tool. The rear guard hands a pannier that wants to sing. The apprentice listens, oils the thread grooves, not the face, slides a felt ring under the creaking hole, then walks and hears silence. A grin becomes a contract to hear sooner next time. The quartermaster pours tea without salt once, announces it. then adds a pinch and asks the body to vote 10 minutes later. Science on the sand earns more loyalty than sermons. Rotation keeps skills alive. Every 3 days, someone steps sideways. The runner becomes shade tender. The shade tender becomes rope keeper. The rope keeper does a back-of-line shift with the rear guard. The only job that doesn't rotate often is the lead. The land expects a signature hand. But even there you give the apprentice an hour after breakfast when light is kind and tempers still remember patience. Animals rotate honours too. The donkey with clinkers, pots, 2 lion, gets quiet sacks tomorrow. The camel that hauled water rides under a wool crown the next day. A goat that tried to invent a crime gets the cadence bell for 1 rest and becomes virtuous out of pride. The caravan's curriculum is written in fixed rituals. At first light, the bell makes a soft test ring. If the tone is wrong, dust in the cup, strap against brass, the day refuses to start until the vowel is true. The first rest always includes a strap census, 1 hole tighter or looser, never the brave 0 that pretends leather doesn't change its mind. Midday has a burn check, pot bottoms lifted to see if soot is telling a story about a fire too wide for wind. Lids promise fuel manners by staying on. Evening holds the repair hour, 2 small fixes instead of 1 large regret. The awl sings, the wedge answers, a paste of ash water oil paints jar lips to keep dust honest. Apprentices close their eyes and tie the knot that breath admits. Etiquette is half of training. You teach polite refusal. We count far from water. We reach windbreak before dusk. Our animals kneel if the bell eats, all of which mean no without saying no. You teach gift direction. Toward the person who solved a problem, smoothed an inspection, lend a quiet place for a kettle, never towards someone who merely looked important. You teach market hands, palms shown for peace, wrists crossed for waiting, fingers kept off goods unless the seller invites. You teach that wells are chapels, voices low, buckets clean, hooves away from the lip. You also teach reading humans without cynicism. Notice who refuses tea twice. They plan to leave quickly. Notice who waters animals before haggling. They understand this isn't theatre. Notice what a guard jokes about. Boredom is a weapon you must not sharpen for him. Children learn to name shoes and animals before faces. Faces are shy and lie, shoes and beasts are honest and talkative. The rearguard collects these ingredients into recipes. Bracelets left plus dye indigo plus coin token means the tax clerk's cousin. Greet accordingly, metrics train the mind to be calm. Numbers are not for boasting. They are for sanity. Co isn't on the road, but you carry its ghost. Voices got quick is a proxy. Ventilate with a short purge in camp. Urine tea-coloured means you miscounted sips. Add salt to supper. PM 2.5 becomes pot argued with soot. You widen the gap under the screen. Never stand downwind to fix air with lungs. In heat, success is scored in shadow. Reed angle that made wrists cool. Headcloth crown pad that stayed damp not wet for 1 hour. 3 sips that arrived exactly on the bell. You praise those. Not courage. A quiet doctrine governs who teaches whom. Elders teach verbs. Tie, angle, kneel, stir, listen. Young bodies teach numbers. Paces to the next shade. Sips remaining at this rate. Minutes until the sky changes colour. The lead teaches editing. The art of removing bad options rather than inventing new ones. The rearguard teaches forgiveness. How to fix a sin so small it never gets a name. The quartermaster teaches predictability. The same cup, same pinch, same chalk marks. Because bodies love what they can expect, discipline hides inside play. Children draw 3 short lines at rests and erase 1 with a toe after each sip. They decide the read angle and get praised for cool. They carry the bright cloth for 5 minutes, the blue that means camp soon, and give it back before vanity grows heavy. Apprentices compete at the silent test. Lift a pannier, walk 10 steps, name any sound that isn't leather breathing or bells. Winner earns the silly prize, carrying the truth weight in its pouch until the next rest. People remember games when fatigue erases lectures. Correction is a craft. You praise privately the first good reaction and codify publicly the rule that reaction illustrates. You correct privately the first bad habit and assign publicly the drill that cures it. You don't shout at hands. You give them a job that fixes the thing you wanted to shout about. Someone ties the rope high. They become rope keeper and feel how low saves ankles and lives. Someone flaps a scarf like a flag. They carry the red triangle for 1 hour with the rule that red means hazard and only the lead wears it. Shame is forbidden. Substitute responsibility and the body will rewrite its reflexes. Seasons adjust the syllabus. In pre-monsoon heat, more shade drills, less fry. Night crossing rehearsal when moon is generous. Dehumidifier of the desert. Wind managed through screens and patience. In dust season, irons practice, temple down, never across, scarf pocket airspace, and lamp signals for nights when voices are sandpaper. In cold, the stove is a teacher. One honest firing, warm lids, steam that is a friend, not a thief. The curriculum shifts, but the grammar is the same. Invite, guide, release, air, heat, effort. The last lesson is succession. Everyone should know how to be boringly competent at the job above and below them. The runner can speak to the guard. The rope keeper can read dunes for an hour. The rear guard can count sips if the quartermaster loses a day to headache. The lead can carry a pannier while someone else names the ridge. The line can lose a piece and remain a sentence. You drill that once a week without saying you are drilling it. Today the apprentice leads until the bell says noon. Tonight the child and elder do the watch together. Time on the road is not a clock you wear. It's a pulse you lend to 100 moving parts. The caravan keeps time with bells, shadows, songs, and sips. Redundant on purpose so a broken strap or a cloudy noon can't steal the schedule. Mapping is the sister of timing, a way to stack yesterdays where you can reach them with your hands. You won't frame these maps. You'll drink from them, walk by them, sleep inside them. The bell is a metronome for bodies before it's a signal for danger. One slow strike at rests writes a 15-minute paragraph. Sandals opened, 3 sips, salt, shade angle, small repairs, regirth, stand. The bell's tone is checked at dawn like fire is. Tap the cup, look for a round vowel. Dust or a stray strap makes it sulk. You fix tone before you fix pace. A sour bell writes a sour morning. Shadows are portable sundials that don't get lost. At first light they're tutors, nagging long. At mid-morning they calm into rulers you can read without bending. At noon they stop teaching and you stop asking. In late afternoon they stretch into generous lines that forgive ambition. A child can keep shadow time by thumb rule. 1 thumb long means plenty of minutes left in the set. Half a thumb means end your story and check a strap. No thumb means shade now or regret soon. Songs turn minutes into breath. Counted paces recited softly. 20 lines of 8 steps, 4 of 4, 1 of 2, make a quarter hour. A good caravan has 3 marching songs. The cheerful one for morning legs, the stingy one for afternoons that lie, and the sleepy one for dusk that mustn't close your eyes yet. You never shout a cadence. You share it, like shade. The ledger of sips is a timepiece too. 3 swallows at each rest, no speeches. The ledger keeper scratches a mark on a gourd and wipes it away at the next stop. You can be wrong about distance and survive. Wrong about rhythm and you buy a headache that tries to invent heroism. Salt turns time into loyalty. Sweat stays. Muscles keep their promises. Maps live first in knots. The linking rope speaks distance with a language that still works at night. A knot at a half arm, first turn after the windbreak. A knot at quarter arm, soft lee slope likely. Twinned knot, shared gait, expect patience. The lead spear wears cloth that remembers chapters. Blue ribbon for camp soon, red triangle for hazard soon, no cloth for boring on purpose. On long routes. A third, quiet code travels the pannier straps. A short tassel tied to the left or right means the day will bend that way afternoon. Animals learn tassels faster than people. Chalk is your printing press. It writes on pannier lids, inside, ledger slats, outside, even on a smooth stone you leave for yourself 3 days hence. Not art, mnemonic, SAB edges, Waddy shoulders PM, tax at Westgate, tin token, not thread, Smith Fair. Chalk survives sweat better than paper. If rain lives where you're going, you double. Chalk plus story, told to the person who wasn't listening the last time, because that is exactly who will remember it next time. Stars are maps that ignore borders. The Pleiades are the road's kitchen timer. When they lift just so, supper that simmers is ready to close. When they sit higher, the last watch starts its figure eight. The North Star stabilizes not your feet but your mind. You point responsibilities the way you point direction, quietly, consistently. Venus gathers people. Lamps echo her at chest height. You don't memorize constellations like scholars. You name the few that help walk: sieve, pointer, river. You teach them to kids by smuggling lessons inside bedtime. When the sieve is bright, the wind is lazy. When it blurs, the wind has opinions. The land itself becomes a storybook. You grant nicknames to reliable shapes: sleeping goat, windbreak that never lies. Broken jar, a split boulder above a trustworthy shoulder path. Coin stack, 3 flat stones that mark the safe lip of a dune. These names stick because they taste like something other than nouns. A good lead sprinkles fresh nicknames carefully. Too many and the map turns to chatter. Too few and the day goes mute, caches a memory buried shallow. Half-skins under a leaning stone, 3 pebbles a signature, a palm rib pointing east. You mark the cache in 3 places: the lead's head, the rearguard's chalk. And a game a child keeps, 7 short lines scratched on a lid. 1 erased at each rest after the cache is passed, so the root forgets to forget. You don't make caches heroic. You make them boring enough to survive gossip. Smell maps as well. Spices leak through cloth and turn goats into professors. You move scent toward the crown where enthusiasm does less harm. Wet clay jars smell like honesty when they're cool. Hot ones smell like future disappointment. You shade them and leave a chalk frown you will scold yourself with tomorrow. Wells of reputations you can sniff. Good water smells like stone that has learned manners. Bad water smells like a market with a hangover. Your nose is a compass no one can steal. Sound makes a compass too. Dunes with small, tight ripples is like a cat when wind rises. Fast, mean, soon. A salt flat that will hold your weight answers the staff's tap with a clean note. One that will not replies with a webbed rattle. Back away while your dignity still fits in your pocket. A waddy shoulder clicks the way a teacup does when it wants to be put down. You move to the other side before the ground talks you into an anecdote you can't finish. You keep a people map alongside the land. Names by wells. The woman who gives cats better scales than men deserve. The boy with the left-hand coin trick. The guard who likes proverbs more than bribes. You don't write these as warning labels. You write them like routes through a town. Tea first at the farmat. Weight check 2 stalls down. Buy figs from the quiet one. A caravan that navigates character arrives with fewer apologies. Timekeeping also lives in work. 15-minute repairs teach the clock better than sermons. The all-singing 3 short stitches into a strap is as good as an hourglass. The kettle's tiny applause at a true simmer sounds like 5 patient minutes. The breathing knot you tighten by 3 fingers twice a day is its own calendar. Wool exhales, waterskins swallow, evening asks for exactly 1 more turn. Routines remember for you when eyes glaze in heat. Iron dust season. You swap visual maps for tactile ones. Rope becomes the main text. Your palm reads the knots. The linking line tells you where the caravan is in its sentence. Slack, comma, firm, clause, humming, someone is lying about their pace. Children trace letters in dust under the read screen. Short lines for sips, long lines for rests, to rebuild a sense of day when the horizon is theatre. Lamps are shaded. Their positions mark rooms in the camp like a floor plan you can walk with your feet. You store margins on purpose. A week has a spare afternoon that no one spends. A day has a spare hour that no one brags about. Each pannier keeps a small void that can swallow a surprise, tax, gift, broken thing promoted to its own seat. These margins are the white space around your map. Without them, the text is unreadable. The quartermaster protects margins like water because they are water in disguise. Disputes about direction are settled by tests, not volume. The staff taps here, the chord measures there. One animal tastes the soft lip with the lead at its shoulder. The rearguard walks 10 paces into the shade and listens for the sentence the ground wants to write. If 3 tests disagree, you delay and drink the kind of tea that admits uncertainty. The bell remains mute until the map is polite again. When you move as if you had never argued. Maps resent grudges. When memory fails, and it will, you pay humility forward. You stop before the ground stops you. You open one pannier, fix the small lie that pride wanted to carry, and redraw the inside map with fewer marks, not more. You ask the child what they remember. Children keep recent better than adults do. You ask the animal with the honest ears. Animals keep terrain better than all of you. You ask the quartermaster how many sips are left. Sips are the map you will obey whether you like it or not. Arrival writes the last line in the day's atlas. Chalk moves from lids to ledger. Knots for hazard soon, untied and laid flat. Bells are wiped, not for shine but for tone. Stars are consulted like witnesses who always tell the same truth. You leave behind only useful ghosts. 3 pebbles where the lip was kind, a reed leaning where a shoulder bore you nicely, a scuff where a mat ferried hooves. The map becomes lighter by exactly 1 fear, heavier by exactly 1 quiet trick. Tomorrow's you will thank tonight's you for not decorating the page with adjectives, time, map, memory, bell, shadow, song. Not, chalk, star. None of it is heroic. All of it is how the road agrees to be kind. The desert does not care if you can recite coordinates. It cares whether you keep a beat, honor signs, and leave room for again. The caravan that does keeps arriving in places it meant to, with legs that forgive and pots that taste like patience.